It's late at night, and you're driving down a desolate stretch of highway somewhere in New Mexico. There's nothing out here except for you, your car, and the road. What you don't know is that you're about to encounter something. Something terrifying. There's no moon, and the sky is pitch black. Your own car is barely lighting up the dark road ahead of you. Just then, you spot something in your rearview mirror. It's a pair of headlights. There's nothing too strange about them, except that they are especially bright. Your eyes are so adjusted to the darkness that you have to look away. When you glance in the mirror again, you see that they're closer. Much closer. They must be going awfully fast. You don't know why, but something about the car behind you makes you feel uneasy. There's something off. You speed up a little. Maybe you can keep some distance from them, but the lights keep getting closer. So you speed up a little more. Still, they gain on you, growing bigger and bigger in your rearview mirror. You're getting nervous. They look like they are barreling right towards you. You floor it. The lights are able to keep up easily, though, and now they're right on your tail. No matter how fast you go, they stay right behind you. The lights are so bright and close that they're almost blinding. You're in a full-blown panic. What is going on? Now the lights are swerving back and forth behind you. What do they want? You take a sharp turn without indicating, but they follow you without difficulty. You keep your foot smashed down on the accelerator. Your engine is screaming, but they just get closer and closer. They're right on your bumper. The bright white lights burn your eyes so bad that you swat at the rearview mirror to point it down. You look up just in time to see the deer standing in the middle of the road. You slam on your brakes as hard as you can. Your tires squeal loudly in the night, and you brace yourself to both hit the deer and get rear-ended from behind. You stop inches from the deer as something incredible happens. The two headlights seem to split, passing by you on either side of your car. You and the deer lock eyes for a split second as if you're both thinking, "What was that?" before the deer hops away into the night. You don't know what's happening, but you're not going to wait around to find out. You throw the car in reverse and hit the gas before whipping it around 180 degrees. You can't remember how far the last town was, but there's no chance you're going in the direction of those lights. You drive as fast as you can, checking your mirror constantly to see if anything is behind you. Nothing. Just darkness. Maybe you're finally safe. No, they're right in front of you. The lights somehow appear out of nowhere right in front of your car. You turn the wheel hard to avoid a head-on collision and you go flying off the road, smashing your head against the window as the car goes flipping and rolling and tumbling. The car comes to a stop 100 feet off the road, upside down, with a lone blinking turn signal dimly lighting up the surrounding field. A single headlight approaches the car, but it's not moving like a vehicle. It's moving like an animal. You're concussed from the accident, and your vision is starting to fade. The last thing you see is a second light approaching. The next morning, the local sheriff is investigating the scene of a single car accident. Curiously, there's no body. Just a few scraps of clothing, and a pair of tennis shoes sitting neatly in the upside-down roof of the car. Strangest, though, are the childlike handprints all over the dirty car door. The sheriff doesn't know what to think. What the sheriff doesn't know is that he has just come upon the aftermath of an SCP-745 attack, a strange and mysterious creature known as the Headlights. SCP-745 is the classification the SCP Foundation has given to a bipedal, nocturnal predator, whose hunting grounds are an abandoned stretch of highway in northern New Mexico. SCP-745's most distinctive feature, by far, is its head, the top of which is a bloated sack of translucent skin. There are no visible sensory organs present on the head, nor does it appear to have a solid skull, and the creature's brain can be directly seen through the semi-transparent skin, which is covered in a web of bioluminescent organs. These organs are capable of producing a steady output of light that's been measured between 1400 to 3200 lumens, which is the equivalent of bright xenon gas headlights. The entity has been observed to have the ability to change the color of this light, as well as flash it in specific patterns. It is theorized that it engages in this behavior as a way to defend itself, and potentially may also use it as a way to communicate with other members of its species. The rest of SCP-745's body is covered in skin that is a deep, dark, black color that almost seems to absorb light. This quality, when paired with their blindingly bright head protrusion, gives the appearance of a floating point of light in the darkness. Because SCP-745 entities hunt almost exclusively in pairs, with their preferred hunting grounds being remote sections of highway, they are easily mistaken for oncoming or approaching headlights. Two SCP-745 entities are able to move together in perfect synchronicity, running in tandem at speeds up to 180 kilometers per hour. Together, they will target lone vehicles that they spot on the highway and will begin to chase or run straight towards them, giving the unlucky driver the impression that a fast-moving car is rapidly approaching them. After they near the targeted car, they will attempt to stop it by any means necessary, whether by simply forcing the driver to pull over out of fear or by running them off the road completely. Once their prey has stopped, crashed, or become otherwise incapacitated, the pair will stop moving together and approach the car separately to directly assault and then consume the vehicle's occupants. Next to no remains are left following an attack, save for a few scraps of clothing in the victim's shoes. Other than the damage sustained during the accident, there is never any other sign of struggle or forced entry, with the only other evidence left at the scene being the childlike handprints from SCP-745's small front paws. Strangely, analysis of SCP-745's genetic structure has revealed that unlike humans, they are not a carbon-based life form, meaning it is unlikely then that they are able to derive any nutrition from the consuming of human flesh. It is theorized then that they may be hunting solely for sport or some other form of perverse enjoyment. This question remains unanswered, as currently there are no recorded observations of SCP-745 feeding in the wild, as successful attacks have never left any witnesses, and specimens captured by the SCP Foundation refuse to eat it all. No lairs, nests, or other refuge of SCP-745 has ever been found, nor has the Foundation located any breeding grounds or young examples of the entity. It's unknown how or if they reproduce, or when they may have first appeared. What is known is that they had established a wide hunting territory across the American Southwest until Foundation teams began a program to thin their numbers in the 1960s. The effort appears to have been successful so far, and all recent sightings of SCP-745 have been limited to a specific stretch of highway in northern New Mexico. SCP-745 has been classified as Euclid, and in order to limit potential exposure to civilians, the Foundation has purchased the land surrounding the highway, with traffic being redirected to other roads. Foundation security teams disguised as highway patrol officers are to remove any trespassers or lost travelers who accidentally find themselves on the dangerous stretch of highway. The security teams are also tasked with attempting to capture any instances of SCP-745 that they can, and any recovered creatures, live or dead, are to be loaded into Class 3 BCU storage containers and transferred to Site-17 for further study. Containment procedures that are able to preserve living specimens are still being researched, and currently, no examples of SCP-745 have survived for more than a week in captivity. However, seeing as there have been no new sightings of SCP-745 outside of the isolated and monitored stretch of highway, and all reports of phantom lights elsewhere in the country have not pointed to evidence of additional SCP-745 outbreaks, they are considered to be effectively contained. A satellite floats in the cold depths of space above our pale blue dot. It positions its targeting array down at a point thousands of miles below, and fires. Clack, clack, clack. A tired-looking man sitting in a coffee shop types away on his computer, taking advantage of the free Wi-Fi to send off yet another job application. Nearby, a barista is writing down orders while a businessman takes a call between quiet sips of his mocha. A teenage girl texts her friend, giggling occasionally. An old man chews his bagel just a little too loudly for comfort. Nothing appears all that out of the ordinary, until the blast hits. Intensity level 25. The job seeker notices a faint whisper in his ear. It startles him, and he turns to look around the coffee shop, but he can't spot who was whispering to him. How odd. He turns back to his keyboard and carries on typing, but a strange feeling hangs over him. This pervasive sense that something is very wrong. His eyes turn to the businessman, and he notices something. His phone is gone, but he's still loudly talking to someone who isn't there. The barista is smiling as she seems to note down orders, but in her notebook, she's scrawling the words, "getting closer," again and again and again, and she doesn't have any idea why. The teenage girl, with shifty, furtive eyes, texts her friend a message saying, "This is gonna sound crazy, but I feel like someone's watching me." As the job seeker tries in vain to fight the feelings of unease, he keeps hearing the old man chewing. Loud, incessant, cow-like chewing. It's really beginning to get on his nerves. Suddenly, the thought crosses his mind that he'd actually like to kill this man. He'd like to squeeze his throat and break his jaw so that he could never chew like that again. The sudden appearance of this alien thought frightens him, and it's about to get so much worse. Intensity level 35. The job seeker starts to wonder if there's any point to this. He suspected that he'd been fired from his last job because nobody liked him. Did he really think he had a chance at getting this one? Really? What a stupid pipe dream. He's bombarded by thoughts like these that make typing more and more difficult. He notices that his hands are shaking. The chewing behind him is still so loud. He can't turn around. He knows on some level that if he does, he'll say something to the old man that he can't take back. The barista stares off into the distance, a haunted, contemplative look in her eye. The businessman gazes into his mocha like a crystal ball. The teenage girl begins to weep. The job seeker looks up when he notices something strange is happening outside. A middle-aged woman walking her dog suddenly clutches her chest like she's having a heart attack. She bends over and breathes deeply. Her dog barks at nothing, enraged by some invisible force that's all around them. Intensity level 50. Something's wrong. The voice in the job seeker's head is no longer a whisper. It's hissing and barking cruel words at him like useless, worthless, lazy, disgusting. Each one boring into his head like a power drill. But far more frightening than the voices themselves is the fact that he believes every single thing they're saying. He's lulled into a trance by their venomous rhythm. The only thing louder is that unending chewing. The waitress calmly walks back to the counter. She picks up a jug of blistering hot coffee and begins to swig directly from it. She can feel it sizzling in her mouth, and she couldn't care less. The businessman begins an intense screaming match with somebody who isn't there, snarling and practically foaming at the mouth. The job seeker can't take that chewing anymore. He turns to the old man, ready to unload on him, but when he opens his mouth to speak, nothing comes out. He sees that the bagel is gone, but the old man is still chewing. He smiles at him, red liquid streaking his lips and teeth. The job seeker looks down at the table and sees the outline of a fingerless hand under the old man's blood-soaked napkin. Intensity level 75. Inside the coffee shop, pandemonium breaks loose. The old man lies catatonic in his booth. The businessman fights a nearby wall, knuckles and toe bones cracking against the bricks. The waitress has the teenage girl in a headlock as the girl shrieks in agony and stabs at her assailant's leg with a table fork. The job seeker looks out the window at the violence suddenly unfolding on the street. Complete strangers are attacking each other with murderous intent, biting, gouging, punching, clawing, tearing, strangling. It all looks like fun. He picks up his laptop and tosses it through the coffee shop window, shattering the glass, as if he was ever going to get that stupid job anyway. He steps through the broken window, a new man, and picks up a large, jagged shard of broken glass, ready to join in on the festivities. Intensity level Keter. Thousands of people are changed. They do unimaginable things to each other and themselves. There is chaos in homes and out on the streets as everything collapses in a wave of terrible, unspeakable violence. Nothing will ever be the same. Thankfully, the horrors that you just observed were only part of a simulation, one created by the SCP Foundation, and intended to demonstrate the worst-case scenarios of various anomalies on their roster. These events have not yet come to pass, but they very easily could if there was even a minor accident with the rogue anomalous satellite known as SCP-923. The SCP-923 satellite consists of a large parabolic dish made from unknown alloys, as well as a powerful internal reactor that produces massive quantities of energy and radiation, all to power the satellite's mysterious anomalous firing mechanism. 923 appears to select specific targets that it then fires a blast of energy at. Those in the proximity of the target when the beam hits are also affected, with the severity of the damage contingent on the intensity of the blast. Like many anomalies, its origins are shrouded in mystery. SCP-923 displays a degree of artificial intelligence and posts reports on its own condition and operations to the O5 Council Secured Information Relay Network, a classified communication network reserved for Foundation employees with Level 5 clearance. According to 923's own data, it was constructed in a Foundation research and development site. This is congruent with blueprints for a planned offensive satellite which was to be constructed at that very site.
but the project had actually been cancelled due to logistical concerns. The O5 Council deems it extremely important that SCP-923 never be made aware of this fact. Currently, since two-way lines of communication have been established, 923 obeys the orders of the O5 Council, not firing on a target unless given authorization by them. If it ever discovers that it technically isn't a Foundation construction, it runs the risk of going rogue and triggering some extremely dangerous outcomes, to say the least. SCP-923 was first discovered after it started a correspondence with the O5 Relay Network, posting a message that it had completed another successful termination, despite no such termination actually being ordered. Over the next several hours, this process continued, as the 923 satellite sent in termination report after termination report, totaling 57 by the time it stopped, 55 of which were later confirmed to be actual deaths, with the other two being deemed inconclusive. Adjustments have since been made to ensure that SCP-923 can't access any information on the network that hasn't been directly intended for it. SCP-923 is an extremely effective weapon. Depending on its operator's level of tolerance for collateral damage, it can completely reverse its orbit to detect and fire upon a target anywhere on Earth in a very short period of time. All it needs are the target's GPS coordinates, their altitude, the intended time of firing, and a selected level of intensity. This, incidentally, is where things get interesting with the tests the Foundation conducted. Naturally, they wanted to see the kind of firepower that each level of intensity was capable of, so D-classes were requested for live tests. The first test performed was at intensity level 10. However, this resulted in an error message, claiming that the 923 satellite isn't capable of firing at an intensity lower than level 23. In accordance with this new information, the Foundation planned the next test at intensity level 25. This time, the effects immediately took hold. The target and those nearby began to experience a degree of paranoid delusion. They would report hearing voices and be seen interacting with people who weren't there. They would experience a sense of crushing terror, impending doom, and also report the growing desire to cause harm to others. Most of all, in debriefing interviews, they would claim that they felt like they were being watched, though they refused to elaborate on what exactly they meant by that. Recovery time from this condition was measured at being between 15 and 19 days. Next came the test at intensity level 35. Everyone affected experienced symptoms similar to intensity level 25, except with powerful new self-destructive compulsions. The area of effect also grew with the increased power. Researchers who thought they were safe over 10 meters away collapsed to the ground in intense panic attacks. The effects were much longer on this setting too, and recovery from this intensity took 6 to 8 months. Interestingly, during the test, there was a severe disruption to the audio-visual equipment. Some devices had been displaced, others were fused to the ground. The video footage was corrupted beyond use, but the audio retrieved displayed nothing out of the ordinary. However, when survivors of the test were asked to listen to the recorded audio, they claimed to once again hear the voices that were in their head that day and experience the terrible feelings and compulsions start up again. One of the researchers appended a note to the file which read, "It looks like this thing actually has a blast effect to it and is not just a laser of madness." The audio and video feed disruptions are particularly interesting. From now on, researchers are to observe remotely, and D-class personnel are to be secured so they can't harm themselves. We need them alive for study. Next, the intensity was brought up to level 50, and the test was conducted once again. The results were once again similar to the previous one, but with far greater intensity and more pronounced physical effects on its victims. D-classes who were completely restrained still exhibited cuts and tears in their skin, and audio-visual recording equipment was displaced to an even greater degree than before. Victims of this intensity have not yet recovered, and Foundation researchers are not confident that they ever will. But the effects went further than just the people present. It appears that the area itself was subject to long-lasting effects. Staff who recovered the D-classes from the testing area reported an extreme sense of unease, claiming that the testing area simply felt wrong, but were unable to elaborate further. In spite of this, the tests continued to increase in intensity. Next, the level was increased to 75, and this is when things truly began to go off the rails. The satellite's target was rendered completely comatose, and the D-classes within 16 meters of him broke free from their restraints and began slaughtering each other with their bare hands. Disturbingly, many of the subjects, both living and dead, who were tested after the fact, seemed to bear wounds consistent with attacks by bladed weapons. None of the D-classes were armed, and the wounds seemed impossible to have been caused by mere fingers and teeth. There was an even greater displacement of recording devices, and some were missing after the test. The retrieved recordings caused even worse states of distress for those affected by the blast who were lucky enough to actually survive and could listen to them again. But it didn't end there. Anyone within 50 meters experienced intense panic attacks that often lasted longer than an hour. Observing researchers experienced what could best be described as a slightly more mild version of intensity level 25 symptoms. They reported hallucinations, things moving in the corners of their eyes, hearing voices, experiencing heightened paranoia and feelings of dread. There was even some poltergeist activity recorded, with objects seeming to move of their own accord. The lasting effects on the physical area are even more pronounced, with laser rangefinders indicating a level of permanent spatial distortion at the epicenter of the blast site. The researcher appended a note to this section of the file, reading, "This is crossing the line from scientific to just barbaric. SCP-923 has said that its maximum output is 238, which it promptly converts to Keter intensity. Let's just see what this does and report our findings." However, the Keter level intensity proved to be too much to handle, so much so that the entry on its test log begins with the sentence, "It is strongly advised that this intensity never be used again." The blast induced psychosis permanently in every subject within a truly insane 2-kilometer radius, including a number of unfortunate researchers who severely underestimated the Keter level blast range. The site is now under permanent Foundation protection as SCP-923-02, due to the permanent effects the blast had on the landscape. A sense of panic is still felt from hundreds of meters away, and anyone who gets close enough to the center will experience full-blown psychosis just as much as those directly affected by the beam. Spatial and temporal anomalies abound in the area, and the O5 Council has deemed SCP-923 a risk in causing an XK-class end-of-the-world scenario. But the most frightening part of all is yet to come. Every time the SCP-923 weapon is used, it causes a degree of internal damage to the satellite itself, raising the threshold of intensity that the weapon needs to even activate. It used to be that the satellite would fire at intensity level 23, but after extensive testing, its minimum intensity level is now 66. If the weapon is ever used again, it's only going to get worse. Despite this danger, SCP-923 has been classified as safe. But how is an object that is both out of Foundation control and able to operate with a dangerous degree of autonomy classified the same as harmless anomalies that require little to no containment procedures? The answer is buried in the question. The SCP Foundation cannot contain SCP-923, but seeing as there are currently over 7,500 active satellites orbiting planet Earth, 923 doesn't arouse much suspicion, especially with the Foundation cover story that it's merely a non-anomalous military satellite. The only continued containment effort required is making sure that other satellites do not enter its path of orbit to ensure that 923's advanced defense systems don't activate and destroy the interfering satellite, revealing its anomalous nature.
3 SCP Foundation agents stand before a large warehouse. Their mission is simple. Enter the building, find the observation unit that has gone missing inside, recover the data from it, and leave. It should be easy, but the rundown structure they're standing in front of is no ordinary building. This is SCP-015. The leader of the group, a large, muscled man who goes by the codename of Agent 6, slides open a large door on the front of the warehouse, and immediately the whole group is struck by a sight that makes them reconsider just how easy this mission is going to be. In front of them is not a wide-open warehouse floor, but a cramped tunnel leading deeper into the building. The group has a job to do, though, and so the 3 head inside. Agent 2 first, followed by Agent Lon, the data specialist, and finally, Agent 6, the expedition leader in the rear. As they enter the narrow hall of pipes, the light from their flashlights plays off the floor, walls, and ceiling. Flashlights are one of the only items allowed in SCP-015, and they reveal what the researchers had told them in their briefing, that many of the pipes aren't made of standard materials, but instead are all sorts of strange substances like wood, glass, or even bone. The odd series of pipes have formed a twisting tunnel leading deeper into the warehouse. The group must be careful, since the floor is uneven, with pipes occasionally sticking up out of the floor like tree roots, ready to trip the unobservant. The 3 follow the corridors of pipes along the path that they each had to memorize. As they come to branching paths, Agent 2 speaks the series of turns they must take aloud. Left, left, right, left, right, right again, straight, right, and so on as they go deeper and deeper. They'd have to follow the directions exactly if they hope to reach the place where the modular robotic vehicle should be. Left, straight, straight again,
Right? Just a couple more turns and they'd reach the point where the MRV had sent its last signal before going offline. As they walk, though, they find that some of the passageways are getting more difficult to pass. The pipes have closed in at certain points, choking the already small tunnels down to mere crawlways. At one particularly narrow point, the group must get down on their bellies and pull themselves along the ground. After Lon and 2 exit the tight passage, Agent 6 suddenly calls out to the 2 agents ahead of him. "What is it? What's wrong?" 2 asks. "I'm stuck," comes the response from 6. Lon and 2 grab 6's arms and begin pulling. With a loud grunt from all of them, 6 finally comes free. His pant leg is shredded from the thorny wood that one of the pipes in the narrow tunnel is made from, but he's free, and they can continue on. Finally, after what seemed like an hour of walking, they finally find it. The modular robotic vehicle that had been sent in to investigate the current state of SCP-015. There's something very strange about the robot's condition, though. It looks like it has been speared right through its primary observation unit. A smooth black pipe that appeared to be made of dark fabric had pierced the vehicle right through its camera, but the lens didn't appear broken. Instead, it looked as if the pipe had somehow connected with it, docking inside the lens housing as if the 2 parts were made for each other. Other pipes had protruded from the floors and walls as well, snaking into open spots on the vehicle and lifting it up a foot off the ground. They looked over the robot, which was held helpless in the air, its wheels slowly spinning as its internal battery ran down. The agents walked around the MRV, examining it, looking confused about the fate that had befallen it. 6 suddenly broke the silence. "Well, what are you waiting for?" Lon wasn't sure what to do, though. As she got closer to the robot, she noticed that a foul-smelling substance was dripping from the pipe that had merged with the camera. Her job was to remove the data from the MRV, but they also had strict orders not to damage anything in SCP-015. So what was she to do about the robot? Wasn't it technically a part of SCP-015 now? She was worried that if she removed the data cards, then SCP-015 might... Well, she didn't know exactly. 6 didn't buy it, though. The researchers may have told them that 015 reacts, but he could see now that it's just a bunch of weird pipes. Maybe it grows or moves a bit, but how would it even know they were there? It hadn't shown any signs of sentience, let alone sapience. He wasn't going to hang around in here any longer than he had to, though, and if Lon wouldn't get on with it, then he would. 6 moves to the MRV and flips open the data cover on its side. More of the fetid liquid pours out, but he ignores it. Lon and 2 both look at each other. Did the other hear that too? It sounded like steam venting from somewhere deep inside SCP-015. 6 doesn't seem to have heard it, and begins to remove the thin data cards from the MRV. With the data now recovered, he decides to see if he could free the vehicle from the pipes. It wasn't necessarily a mission objective, but why let good Foundation property go to waste when it's right here in front of them? 6 pulls first at the MRV, then the pipes that were running into it, but he can't get it to move. It's completely stuck, seemingly fused to the pipes. "Come on, we've got the data, let's get out of here," 2 says. But 6 isn't done trying. He sets his flashlight down and uses both hands, pushing against the wall of pipes with his foot to gain additional leverage, when suddenly, there's a creaking sound. "Ha! I think I got it." But 6 was mistaken. It wasn't the sound of the MRV coming free that he had heard, but the sound of the floor underneath him giving way. 6 falls into the floor up to his armpits, and the other 2 agents rush to help him. But as they do, they notice the glow and immediate burst of heat coming from the hole. Thickly flowing molten glass begins to fill the hole, and Agent 6 cries for help as they desperately try to pull him free. His cries turn into screams of desperation as they each grab an arm and, after a struggle, finally manage to free him and drag him from the hole. 6 is no longer screaming as he is pulled free, though. His eyes and mouth are locked wide in sheer panic. Lon is now the one who starts to scream, as she realizes that they have pulled only the top half of Agent 6 from the hole above the fiery pit. The bottom half of his body is completely gone, burned away by the heat of the liquid glass. There's no time to be shocked, though, because pipes begin to hiss and ping all around them. A wooden pipe above 2 and Lon suddenly bursts, sending a cloud of dust flying into their faces. It's powdered glass, and it starts to pour out of the broken pipe, covering what's left of 6 completely. 2 spits out a thick stream of blood, his mouth shredded from the glass particles, as Lon desperately tries not to rub them deeper into the cuts in her eyes. They both know they can't stay here, though. They have to run. The pipes are deafening as they move as quickly as they can back the way they came. It sounds like a train is barreling through the building. They're surrounded by chaos. Boiling chemicals pour out of one pipe. Tiny slicing rose thorns spray out of another. They come to a crawlway that's just a couple feet wide, but it's their only way forward, and they have no choice but to enter. 2 dives in and starts crawling. Lon is hesitant, but a blast of steam from a pipe near her head convinces her she has no choice, and she follows after him. 2 wriggles through the narrow passage and is surrounded by more sounds of pipes creaking all around him. Each one seems like it might burst and pour who knows what deadly substance onto him. But he has to suppress his fear and keep moving forward. Finally, he emerges into a wider hallway. He turns and looks back at the hole. Lon should have been right behind him, but there's no sign of her. He sticks his head back in and calls for her. There's no response, but he can hear her still in there, somewhere in the dark, struggling. He has to help her. 2 gets back into the passage and starts crawling. She couldn't have been that far behind him, probably just around the next turn. But as he crawls around the bend, there's nothing there, just another wall of pipes. The passage has been sealed up. It's a dead end. He presses his ear to the wall and can hear Lon screaming on the other side. He hits his flashlight against the pipes in anger. The pipe shakes for a moment, then bursts, spraying out a black liquid that covers his hand. It's some kind of corrosive acid, and he screams as it burns through his gloves to the flesh beneath. He quickly crawls backwards out of the narrow tunnel and emerges back out into the wider passage. Chu cradles his hand, trying not to look at the exposed bone. "I'm sorry," he cries as he runs through the tunnel of pipes towards what he hopes is the exit. "I'll get help. I'll come back, I swear." Lon can't hear his promises, though. She heard what she thought was a pipe burst followed by Chu's cries, but she doesn't know now if he's dead or alive. She decides she has no choice but to go back the way she came. Maybe there's another way out. But after moving just a few inches, her feet touch a solid wall. She's trapped in a space no bigger than a coffin. She feels around, but there's nothing here in the dark. Nothing at all. Just smooth, fuzzy, warm pipes. No, wait. There is something. A gap in the ceiling. But it's just the open end of another pipe. And now, there's something dripping out of it. Droplets of whatever the substance is land on her face, and then a full stream of liquid pours out onto her. She coughs as it gets into her mouth, but then realizes that it's sweet. It's honey? At least it wasn't molten glass or deadly acid. Maybe she could even survive for a time on the liquid until another expedition team came to rescue her. Her brief moment of hope is cut short when she realizes that the pipe isn't stopping and that she's already lying in an inch-deep pool of honey. Lon beats on the walls and ceiling as the honey continues to rise around her and screams for help. She tries to plug the pipe with her fingers, but it's no use. Nothing can stop more and more of it from pouring out. The honey continues to rise around her, and all she can do is scream and claw at the pipes that have created her tomb. She presses her lips to the ceiling in an attempt to gain one last breath before the honey completely fills the space. Her final choking gasps are sickly and sweet as the honey fills her lungs. Agent 2 keeps running through the tunnel of pipes. His hand no longer hurts, at least, either from the shock or from the fact that all the nerve endings had been burned away. The horrible sounds coming from the pipes seem to have stopped too. Maybe he really would make it out of this alive. Lon might have found another way out too. There's no telling how many routes through this maze of pipes exist. He would probably exit the building to find her outside waiting for him. Poor Agent 6, though. He never had a chance after opening that cover on the MRV. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted, though, when his foot catches on an unseen pipe and he falls forward onto the floor. Or rather, he should have fallen on the floor. Instead, a pit opens up in the ground, leading to a steep, sloping floor of pipes. He screams and tries to stop himself, but the slick liquid covering everything makes it impossible for him to slow his descent, and he begins to slide down the pipes. His dimming flashlight shows what seemed to be an endless tunnel of pipes stretching down into the dark. The tube of pipes twisted this way and that, slamming him into the walls on either side, tumbling him head over feet. And the descent never seemed to end. He screamed until his voice went hoarse, then gave out entirely. He didn't have any way to mark the passage of time, other than when his flashlight finally started to flicker and then dim, before finally dying. He slid down the endless tunnel of pipes for what felt like days in the darkness, far deeper than they physically should have been able to go. When the friction of the pipes began to tear his skin away, it was almost welcome. At least there would finally be an end. Following the loss of the SCP-015 recovery team, the data on the modular robotic vehicle was deemed non-vital, and no further expeditions were authorized in order to try and recover it. SCP-015 is a mass of pipes, vents, boilers, and other various plumbing apparatuses that have completely filled an otherwise nondescript warehouse located in a major American city. Anytime the warehouse is not being directly observed, the pipes will begin to grow, filling nearly all of the available space in the building, but also trying to connect to other nearby structures through the sewer and other subterranean infrastructure systems. The current best estimate of Foundation researchers is that the building contains over 190 kilometers of pipes, which range from just 2.5 centimeters to over 1 meter in diameter. While some of these pipes will look new, others have the appearance of being rusted or damaged, with many showing signs of leaking. The pipes are made of a strange assortment of materials as well, including bone, wood, steel, pressed ash, human flesh, glass, and granite. Oddly, no pipes composed of lead, PVC plastic, copper, or any other material one would normally expect to be used for the production of pipes have been found. But by far the strangest anomalous quality of SCP-015 is that it appears to react to aggressors. Should the building detect that the personnel inside of it are carrying tools, or if they make any attempt to either damage or repair any of its pipes, they will trigger an immediate reaction. Pipes near the offending subject will often burst, spraying them with a variety of liquids that have included oil, mercury, rats, a species of insect not yet identified, ground glass, seawater, entrails, and molten iron. More and more pipes will continue to burst around the subject until they either retreat from SCP-015 or are killed. SCP-015 was discovered by the Foundation after reports that pipes emanating from a warehouse had mysteriously started to connect to multiple other nearby structures, with no obvious answer for how or why they had suddenly begun emerging from the structure. The pipes were eventually able to be cut back and are now solely within the warehouse once again, but the human cost of containing SCP-015 has been high, and so far, 11 SCP personnel have been killed in their interactions with the anomaly, and an additional 20 are still missing. All of the missing are presumed to also be dead, though there have been reports of banging and screaming coming from within the building that may indicate they are still alive in some form. SCP-015 has been classified as Euclid, and because the building itself is impossible to move, it has been effectively contained on site. The Foundation maintains a gap of at least 2 meters around the warehouse, and no structures are allowed to be built that make contact with the building's outer walls. Should any protrusions from SCP-015 be detected, the pipes are to be immediately capped and sealed. Internal exploration of SCP-015 is permitted with approval from senior staff, but following numerous losses within the site, expedition teams must consist of 3 members, all of whom are equipped with safety lines and GPS tracking. The teams are not allowed to bring any hand or power tools within the building, nor are they to attempt any repairs or maintenance of any kind while inside. There's no need to enforce these rules, though, seeing as SCP-015 appears more than happy to terminate the offenders itself. The SCP Foundation contains many anomalous locations, though SCP-015 may just be one of the strangest. You and your friends exit a club and step onto the darkened city street. Everyone is in a happy and joyful mood. It's been a great night, one that you'll be reminiscing about with your friends for years. As you walk and laugh together, you don't notice the large man standing in front of you and almost run straight into him. You offer a quick apology and move to go around the man, but he steps in front of you, blocking your path. All of your friends grow quiet, and you finally take a good look at the man. The man towers over you. He is huge, with giant, elaborate tattoos wrapped around his bulging muscles that it looks like he may have gotten to cover up the numerous white patches of skin that are missing pigmentation. His face, though, is bright red and filled with rage. The man begins screaming at you, asking why you ran into him and calling you horrible names. Again, you try to apologize, but the man just keeps yelling as if he can't even hear you. He pushes you hard in the chest, and you fall back into one of your friends. Another steps forward in an attempt to defuse the situation, but the man punches him in the face, breaking his jaw. A melee ensues, though it could more accurately be described as a massacre. The man has gone ballistic and punches, kicks, and bites your entire group of friends. His strength seems unreal, even for someone as big and muscular as him. A large bouncer runs over in an attempt to break up the fight, but even he is no match for this tattooed giant. You've been on the ground since he shoved you, watching this insanity play out, but now, with everyone else lying on the ground bloodied and bruised, he turns his attention back on you. You try to scramble back to your feet, but he's upon you in an instant. He picks you up over his head and tosses you into some trash cans, knocking you unconscious. You open your eyes to see the man standing over you. You can feel the blood from numerous cuts on your face running down into your eyes and mouth. The man picks you up with one hand and holds you by the throat against the wall. He's still in a rage, breathing hard through clenched teeth, bits of white foaming in the corners of his mouth as he brings up his other hand and curls his fingers into a fist. All you can think is this it? But then you notice something. The tattoo that snakes down the man's arm all the way to his hand is moving. The long, serpentine dragon is writhing and slithering as if it's alive. Is this really happening, or just a result of the concussive trauma you've received? There's no time to consider it further, though, as the man pulls back and throws a punch right into your face. You can feel your nose flatten and break from the impact, which understandably distracts you from the bizarre occurrence that follows. Right as the man's bloodied fist makes contact with your face, the dragon on his arm seems to swim off of his skin and onto yours. Like a snake moving through water, it glides off his fist onto your face before sliding down your neck onto your body. There is a searing pain as it moves, like you're being poked with needles over and over. You scream from the pain, blood from your broken nose pouring out of your mouth. The man drops you to the ground and steps back. He no longer looks to be in a rage, and instead looks confused. He looks down at his skin to find that the tattoo is completely gone. A look of unbridled joy comes over his face, and he turns and runs away into the night, laughing with glee as he does so. You are left whimpering in pain, curled up in a ball in the pile of trash where he left you, the dragon tattoo now covering your entire body. As you have probably already guessed, this is no normal tattoo. No, this is an anomalous creature that is known to the SCP Foundation as SCP-021, but it also has another name: the Skin Wyrm. SCP-021 is an obligate parasite that uses the human body as a host. Its visual appearance is in the form of a large, elaborate tattoo of an Oriental-style dragon, which covers roughly 1 square meter of its host's skin. What makes this tattoo truly unique is that it is fully animated and moves on the host's body just as a real animal would, though in 2D like a cartoon playing out in real time on their skin. The movement of the tattoo causes horrendous pain for the host, and has been described as feeling like thousands of tiny needles are stabbing at them all at once, as if a fresh image is being constantly tattooed on their skin, while at the same time, a tattoo removal process is happening. While the tattoo organism is able to move, it seems to prefer spending most of its time on its host's torso, though it has been seen to move around to other parts of the body on occasion. As SCP-021 moves around on the surface of its host's body, it appears to feed on the pigments in the skin. Its favored meal seems to be other tattoos, which it will seek out and devour, though if none are present, or if it has eaten all of the tattoos on its host, it will begin consuming the melanin from the skin instead. Melanin is a naturally occurring pigment found in human skin, and after SCP-021 sucks it from its host, it will leave them with permanent skin damage and patches of unpigmented skin that appear similar to that of the skin condition vitiligo. The feeding itself does not appear to cause the host any pain, and the pigments, whether they are from another tattoo or the natural ones in the skin, will simply disappear as 021 eats them. The pace at which SCP-021 feeds will vary, but it has been observed as being able to clear over half a square meter of skin in roughly 1 hour. One way to prevent SCP-021 from eating all of the melanin present on a human is to quickly add new tattoos of fruits or small animals as a way to continually distract it from turning to the melanin. Thus far, outside of motion, the organism has displayed no elevated intelligence or the ability to communicate. It simply moves and feeds. SCP-021 is not permanently affixed to the skin of any one host, and in fact, can be transferred back and forth between hosts multiple times. The only way to transfer the organism is through physical contact, though skin-to-skin contact does not guarantee that the organism will take to a new host. In the event that it does, the dragon tattoo appears to swim across the touching skin and will affix itself to the new human host. Skin-to-skin contact in the romantic sense has been shown to be the most reliable method of transfer from one host to another, with a 93% rate of successful transmission. However, as you can imagine, the tattooing sensation that comes along with any movement of SCP-021 means that this particular transfer is extremely painful for all parties involved, and the Foundation has deemed that despite its high success rate, it should only be used when absolutely necessary. Contact between two open wounds has been shown to be an only slightly less effective method, and has become the default means of transferring when the SCP Foundation wants to move SCP-021 from one host to another. Transferring the organism from a deceased host to a living one is possible, though more complicated. SCP-021 appears not to mind when its host organism is no longer alive, continuing to feed on whatever pigments are available to it, and does not seem to suffer any ill effect from the condition of its host. It is as yet unknown whether SCP-021 could be transferred to another species. So far, the organism has only been willing to move from human to human, though research into the question is ongoing. It's theorized that if SCP-021 is able to exist on a non-human animal, it would only occur in the rarest of circumstances. Unlike most parasites, SCP-021 does offer some small but tangible benefits to its host human. In addition to hosts of the organism appearing to have an improved immune system, research has also shown that the presence of 021 will increase its host's release and reuptake of epinephrine, better known as adrenaline. It will also decrease the buildup of lactic acid, which is what builds up in the muscles during activity and causes burning sensations and soreness. Combined, these benefits from SCP-021 provide its host with increased strength and confidence, as well as give a heightened pain tolerance during stressful situations. Not surprisingly, the host of SCP-021 also displays a high level of aggression, though whether this comes from their elevated hormone levels or simply because the organism causes them to be in constant pain is still an unanswered question. The amount of time that this symbiotic relationship can be sustained is typically limited to how long the host can tolerate the unceasing pain of the tattoo moving about their body. The persistent agony that a host of SCP-021 endures has led to multiple hosts having taken their own lives, and in a few rare cases, they have also succumbed to fatal skin infections. Though these were likely the result of open wounds caused by the hosts scratching at their own skin, rather than anything directly attributable to the organism. SCP-021 is currently contained on the body of a D-Class personnel, D-139, who is housed in Standard Detention Cell 217A, and the relative ease with which it can be kept on a human subject's body has led to it receiving the Safe classification. Only D-Class personnel are eligible to be a host to SCP-021, and current operating procedure is to allow the organism to live on the same host's body until they expire. The exact nature of what SCP-021 is, as well as its origins, remain a mystery to the Foundation. Attempts have been made to trace the path of its transmission from before its time in containment, and it is hypothesized that the organism could be many hundreds of years old, if not older. As evidenced by its low SCP number, 021 is one of the oldest SCPs that the Foundation keeps contained, and it has proven to be a very useful educational tool for new and upcoming researchers as they study this bizarre creature and its existence that occurs entirely within 2 dimensions.
The final bell rings, signaling the end of a new class's first day at middle school. A girl exits the building, her backpack slung over her shoulder, body hunched under its unfamiliar weight. It's been a long and tiring day. Her family just moved to this small Oklahoma town from the big city, and of course, she's spent every minute since then trying to adjust to her new surroundings. It's never easy to be the new kid in town. Right now, all she wants to do is to get home and relax. She doesn't want to think about school and its related anxieties for the rest of the night. As she walks down the stairs, she notices the school bus parked at the curb. Thank goodness, she thinks. I can't wait to get out of here. This day can't end soon enough. But for some reason, something about this bus sets her nerves on edge. What is it that just seems off? There's nothing blatantly wrong with the bus, but when she looks closer, she realizes that it definitely looks a little strange. The different parts of the bus just don't add up. Some parts are new, clearly just off the factory floor, while others are battered and bruised from long-time wear. Some parts even seem to come from different makes and models of bus. I guess it's not that strange, she thinks. After all, her old school always had a measly budget. You could practically see the road through holes in the floor sometimes. Her new one probably just has those same issues. Aren't those problems all over the country after all? The school probably just had to buy a dilapidated old bus cobbled together from random parts to make ends meet. And besides, she thinks as she watches her classmates pile onto the strange bus without a second thought, none of the other kids seem to think that there's anything weird going on.
This must all just be in my head, she thinks. I'm probably just being weird because I'm so tired. I can't let myself become the new girl and the weird girl. The girl is startled as she hears a voice behind her. Hey! She turns and sees a boy that she recognizes. He sits behind her in class. They haven't spoken before now, but he seems friendly enough. You're the new kid in school, aren't you? He says. Yes, my family just moved to town. She tries to talk to him, but she can't help but keep getting distracted by the weird bus. Right. The boy glances at the bus, as if he can sense her discomfort with it. You worried about the bus? I was pretty nervous my first time riding it, but I don't worry about it anymore. You get used to it, he tells her. Right, she says. The girl feels her cheeks going red with embarrassment. She doesn't want her classmate to think that she's scared of riding a bus. What if he tells the other kids that she's frightened of a bus ride? They're all going to think that she's some kind of silly baby. I'm not scared of the bus. It is just a bus, right? The boy grins, as if he knows something that she doesn't know. The girl doesn't want to admit her fear, and so with a defiant step, she climbs the stairs and enters the bus. Once she's on board, her unease doesn't go away. The first thing that she notices is that there is no one in the driver's seat. That's weird. Did the driver just step away to use the bathroom or something? Seems pretty irresponsible to leave the bus unattended. There's a line forming behind her, though, so she doesn't have time to think about this. She takes a seat and stares out the window, keeping to herself. The boy from her class follows and takes a seat next to her. It's a little wild at first, but trust me, you'll get used to it fast. In fact, some of us think it's kind of fun now. The girl blinks in confusion. Who is this weirdo that gets such a kick out of riding the bus? She almost wants to snap at him, to tell him that of course she's not scared of riding the bus. She's ridden the bus hundreds of times back at her old school. But at the same time, there's definitely something weird going on here. And as much as she's trying to play it cool, she's clearly not able to hide her feelings. This boy can easily sense that she's uncomfortable. Suddenly, the bus lurches into action and pulls away from the curb. But wait, how can this be? She never saw the driver get back on board. The bus can't be driving itself, can it? She stands up in her seat and cranes her neck to see. Her eyes bulge from her head in fear and surprise as she realizes that, in fact, there's no one driving the bus at all. The driver's seat is empty and the wheel is turning by itself as the bus careens down the road. Who's driving the bus? She shouts, but the other kids barely even react to her outburst. Most of them are chattering amongst themselves, and only one or two turn to look at her briefly before shrugging and turning back to their own private conversations. A chorus of giggles behind her alert her to the fact that she's just completely embarrassed herself. What's the matter, you scared? Calls an older boy from the back of the bus, guffawing loudly. Of course no one's driving. Don't you know anything? Leave her alone, says the boy in the seat next to her. It's her first time. She's never ridden the bus before. She's too panicked to correct him that, yes, she has been on the bus before, but not a bus like this one. What's going on? We're all gonna die, she cries, clutching at the seat in front of her in terror. Despite her fear, though, she can't help but notice that the bus isn't simply speeding into oblivion. The bus obeys all the traffic laws, stopping at stop signs and signaling before turns. It's almost as if the bus itself is alive and aware of what it's doing. That's just how it is, says the boy next to her in a matter-of-fact voice as if he's anticipated her question. Apparently, this is a normal day for kids here in this Oklahoma town. The girl doesn't think she could ever get used to a bus that drives itself. But what comes next is going to prove to be even stranger. But you might want to close your eyes for this next part, says the boy. The girl asks him what he means by that. But before he can answer, she feels a strange wave of sudden nausea overcome her. Her vision goes hazy, and the whole world seems to waver in her sight. But the sensation passes quickly, and everything is quickly back to normal. Or is it? She turns to look out the window. The city passing by is familiar. She can recognize many of the same buildings that she passed on her way to school this morning. But now they seem strangely altered. The structures are in advanced states of disrepair, with broken windows and boarded-up doors. The gutters are filled with trash and debris, and the streets seem to be abandoned. The bus takes a left turn down a side street, and the girl catches a brief glimpse of the town's city hall in the distance. She gasps. City Hall is on fire. Great gouts of hot red flame pouring from the shattered windows. Sirens echo through the air. The sky above is an ominous red, filled with angry storm clouds with jagged bolts of dry lightning dancing between the thunderheads, and she can see the funnel of a distant tornado making a touchdown in the hills. The bus briefly comes to a stop in front of the library, dutifully obeying a flickering traffic light. The library's windows are dark, but she can vaguely see shapes moving about inside. Electric sparks shoot from malfunctioning street lamps and downed power cables flail like angry snakes in the street. It looks like some terrible natural disaster has hit the city. But what could it be? Surely she would have heard some warning while she was at school. It wouldn't have just carried on as usual in the classroom while the world outside burned. She turns to the boy next to her, a fearful question on her trembling lips. He seems to know what's going on. Otherwise, how could he be so eerily calm while everything outside the bus is falling apart or on fire? What happened to the city? Was there an earthquake? No, we would have felt it. Was there a hurricane? Every possible disaster scenario runs through her head as she desperately tries to think of an explanation. But what happens next reveals to her that there's no natural explanation for the strange sights that assail her eyes. As she watches through the window, a squadron of armed soldiers march down the street toward the darkened library. Suddenly, the doors fly open and people pour out, screaming as if they're being chased by some unspeakable evil. The girl expects that the soldiers must be here for disaster relief, but she is horrified when, instead of helping the escaping library patrons, they instead open fire upon the crowd. The girl screams in terror, but the other kids barely even notice. They're too busy talking or laughing. One kid is so disinterested in the spectacle outside that he's playing with a handheld game console rather than watch the carnage unfold. How can this be happening? Has the whole world gone crazy? She's filled with terror as she wonders, is the whole town under siege? Is her house still standing? Are her parents safe? Where is this bus even taking her? I told you that you might want to cover your eyes, says the boy next to her. The bus continues on its route, passing all sorts of terrifying sights. A parking lot has been transformed into a mass grave. She watches as uniformed police line up peaceful citizens against a brick wall to brutally execute them by firing squad. Mass riots are taking place in the town's central park. People are yelling obscenities and pounding one another into pulp, while armed law enforcement officers sweep in to escalate the situation. The air is thick with screams, gunfire, and the smell of burning bodies. The shopping mall is overrun with giant spiders, which chase screaming shoppers out of the exits. She sees rats as big as cars scurrying out of the alleyways, grabbing random people with their taloned paws and biting their heads off with their long, sharp incisors. On the distant hills, she can also make out the outlines of even stranger creatures that she cannot identify. Dinosaurs, aliens, demons. She doesn't come from a particularly religious family, but the sights that she sees today definitely make her think that she might be seeing a glimpse into the maw of hell itself. The girl has never seen anything so awful in all her life. To her surprise, several of the other kids cheer as the bus drives past a gaggle of walking corpses. They're mutilated and half decomposed, but somehow still mobile, shambling down the sidewalk and moaning. How can the other kids be enjoying this? Yeah, 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 chant the kids. Zombies, that rules! Maybe we'll get to see them eat some brains for once, cries the older boy in the back of the bus with sudden glee. What is going on? Repeats the girl. It's just the usual bus ride, says the boy next to her. Don't worry, I felt the same way when I first started at this school, but it's really not so bad. I mean, it's kind of cool, isn't it? The girl opens her mouth to respond, but she's suddenly overcome with that familiar feeling of nausea. The world quivers briefly in front of her, and suddenly, everything is back to normal. The sky is clear and blue, the buildings are no longer dilapidated. People are bustling in the streets, going about their usual business. There's no sign of any of the horrors that she just witnessed. No fires, no soldiers, no monsters, and no zombies. The boy next to her commented that they must have been reaching someone's stop. From around the bus, she hears several other kids groan in frustration. They were hoping that they would get to see some exciting zombie carnage, but it looks like that show will have to wait for another time. The bus slowly comes to a halt, and the girl tenses as she hears the hiss of its air brakes. The door opens, and the girl realizes that the bus has stopped in front of her house. She's relieved to see that her house is standing, and she can see her mother gardening in the front yard, safe and sound. Was it all a dream? This is my stop, says the girl, standing up as if in a daze. The first time's always a little wild, says the boy as she leaves. Don't worry, tomorrow will be easier. The girl steps onto the curb and away from the bus. The doors close behind her, and the bus pulls away, continuing on its journey. Did you enjoy your first day of school today? Asks the girl's mother. The girl can only stare in shock as the bus drives away. What just happened? Did a self-driving bus just take her on a tour of hell before bringing her right to her own doorstep? Or did she really just imagine that whole experience? As you astute Foundation veterans have probably already put together, this new girl at school didn't imagine anything she just saw. That girl just had her first encounter with SCP-3583. At face value, SCP-3583 resembles an ordinary school bus, albeit one composed of completely random parts all held together by some unknown force. The bus is self-driving, and in fact resists any attempt by a human to sit in the driver's seat. At some point, SCP-3583 became attached to a particular school in an undisclosed Oklahoma town for reasons the SCP Foundation still doesn't understand. Every school day, at 3:45 p.m., it appears outside of the school just as the school day comes to a close. The bus can hold up to 56 children and up to 8 adults. If it judges that not enough children have boarded, SCP-3583 will begin to honk its horn. The horn has a peculiar, hypnotic effect on all children within hearing range. They will be compelled to drop whatever they are doing and board the bus, meaning that the bus has some innate cognitohazardous properties. If the bus still feels that it hasn't reached its quota, it will increase the volume of its horn until it has attracted enough children that it can begin its route. Depending on how many adults have boarded, SCP-3583 has 2 distinct patterns of behavior. If 4 or fewer adults are aboard, SCP-3583 enters behavior pattern 1. In this pattern, SCP-3583 will dematerialize and enter a parallel reality called SCP-3583-A. SCP-3583-A superficially resembles the normal geography of the same Oklahoma town, with some minor but very important changes. The typical city landscape is replaced with a hellish alternative full of crumbling architecture, marauding monsters, shambling zombies, fires and natural disasters, and instances of military violence and civil unrest. SCP-3583 will travel through this terrifying hell dimension along normal bus routes, studiously obeying all traffic laws and pausing to re-enter our own reality, only to deliver kids to their own homes. Interestingly, SCP-3583 only offers door-to-door service and ignores all conventionally posted bus stops. If 5 or more adults are aboard, SCP-3583 enters behavior pattern 2. In this pattern, SCP-3583 will travel to the sites of mass casualty events, seemingly arriving in the days or weeks preceding the incident, where it will circle the area for approximately 45 to 100 minutes. After this, it will enter pattern 1, delivering each child passenger to their home, before then delivering its adult passengers home as well. Known mass casualty sites visited include Pompeii, Nanking, and the World Trade Center in New York. Passengers inside SCP-3583 can take photos or video through the bus window, and all footage shot from within SCP-3583 matches exactly with archive footage taken at the mass casualty site at the time that SCP-3583 supposedly visited. However, SCP-3583 itself has never been reported by witnesses at any site or seen in any archive footage of any site. Luckily, SCP-3583 has proven to be a boon to this struggling school district. The school principal noted that SCP-3583 has a better safety record than any human driver. In addition, it never calls in sick and is never late for a pickup or drop-off. Every student that has received a ride in SCP-3583 has arrived safely, if a little shaken, at their home destination. And best of all, SCP-3583 is saving the school a lot of money on both driver pay and vehicle maintenance, money that the school has used to hire a new music teacher. The general consensus of the local community is that as long as SCP-3583 wants to work as a school bus and continues to do a good job, who are they to look a gift horse in the mouth? Although it still might behoove some of SCP-3583's more sensitive riders to shut their eyes and plug their ears until they get safely home. The SCP Foundation first became aware of SCP-3583 when students began posting cell phone footage of their rides online. Although the Foundation has successfully scrubbed information about SCP-3583 from the internet, it has been less successful in figuring out what to do with the so-called school bus from hell. Foundation field agents are so far unable to explain SCP-3583's motive or operations. Conventional attempts to contain SCP-3583, such as impounding the bus or towing it to the junkyard, are futile. SCP-3583 will immediately dematerialize, falling apart into a rubble of disparate bus parts as the force binding it together appears to abandon this plane. However, SCP-3583 will always return the next school day, ready and willing to begin its afternoon shift. Agents have considered closing the affected school, but feared that would only move the problem, as SCP-3583 would simply attach itself to another school. The SCP Foundation is currently monitoring the situation and has several agents embedded within the school district posing as regular staff. Because of this immense difficulty in containment, SCP-3583 has been given the Keter Object Class. Considering the number of SCP anomalies that involve horrific bodily harm being done to their victims, it's honestly a breath of fresh air to be dealing with one this seemingly benevolent, A little post-traumatic stress disorder aside, of course. And while Hell Bus may be what most around the Foundation have taken to referring to this particular anomaly, I'm going to stick to my own name, the Tragic School Bus. It's October 31st, 2021, and anyone who's anyone in the upper crust of society knows that there's really only one place to celebrate Halloween if you want to stay relevant: a certain Norwegian billionaire's yearly costume ball. Invitations are highly exclusive, and if you have to ask where you can get one, you're definitely not on the list. Those lucky, beautiful, famous, or just plain rich enough to be invited receive the notice a year in advance, in an increasingly elaborate fashion each time. Rumor has it that one year the billionaire specially trained a flock of purebred carrier pigeons to deliver the invites, printed on scrolls recovered from the ruins of the Library of Alexandria. But that's just a rumor, of course. This year's invitations arrived in the form of a luxury sports car with a simple, gold-embossed card hidden in the glove compartment that read, "Lucky You." It then provided information on this year's theme, medieval fantasy. The dress code would be strict, and failure to comply would result in being barred from entering the event. It also included a vital piece of carefully guarded information, the location of the party. The lavish event is held in the billionaire's castle, nestled in the remote countryside of Norway, which he had built a decade ago specifically for this one night a year. For the other 364 days, it sits vacant, except for a full staff to keep it in prime condition, of course. As a group of first-time partygoers pull up the long, winding driveway to the castle's gates, their limo is stopped by a guard. "Your driver will need to let you out here," he explains. "Can't have someone who isn't on the list coming up to the residence," your host insists. And so the group, 2 men and 2 women, climbs out of the car, and they all make their way up the drive on foot. They didn't prepare for the trek, and by the time they reach the castle gates, the ladies are sweating into their exquisite handmade gowns, and one of the gentlemen has torn a small hole in his tights. Nevertheless, they have arrived at what promises to be a truly grand occasion. Once the gates creak open and grant them admission, they quickly forget the discomfort of the long walk. Reports of the event have not, in fact, been greatly exaggerated. It is every inch as impressive as they could have imagined it would be. A lush golden carpet rolls out from the doors into the ballroom, and a herald clad in period attire blows a horn to signal their arrival. He announces their names to the room, where beautiful people are already dancing and frolicking to their heart's content. There are rows and rows of delicious-looking food, including roasted pigs, fresh fruit, and cakes. There are fountains filled with the finest champagne, and a full orchestra provides live music that fills the enormous halls. Above it all, the host himself sits, dressed in regal robes and a crown positively dripping with jewels. It is the most indulgent, decadent, glorious event any of them have ever been a part of. There are no clocks inside the party castle, and no other way to note the passage of time while inside. This is entirely deliberate, and an event there ends only when the guests have all grown too weary to continue the merriment. It is for this reason that the 4 newcomers do not notice how late it has grown, or the fact that one day has already bled into the next outside the castle. By the time they stumble back outside, filled with cake, champagne, and fresh gossip they can't wait to repeat, it is nearly dawn. They walk back down the path that led them to the castle, their steps a little heavier with exhaustion and the aforementioned champagne, and notice that there are rows of limousines and other cars waiting where they were dropped off. "Excuse me," one of the women calls out to a guard. "Where's our limo?" "Where did you tell him to wait?" the guard responds. At this, the woman looks at her companions, who all shrug. None of them were aware of this practice, and they sent the driver home when they left the car. "We didn't," she explains. The guard stares at her blankly for a moment, then bursts out laughing. "Well then," he says, "you'll just have to walk." Surely there's a contingency plan in place, right? Their wealthy host can't expect his guests to walk home if they didn't think to plan ahead and tell their driver to wait all night. The group waits for the punchline, the reveal that there is a driver on staff ready to give them a ride or someone who can call them a cab, but it never comes. Not only that, but none of their cell phones have a signal. They can't call the driver to come back, even if he wasn't likely to be dead asleep at this hour. The guard is right, they will have to walk, at least until they have enough of a signal to call for a taxi. So, with no other option in sight, the disillusioned partygoers begin the long journey back to civilization. Light is beginning to trickle back onto the landscape, allowing them to at least see where they are going, but it is still mostly dark as they make their way along the road. "Are we safe out here?" one of the men asks. "From what, muggers?" the other replies. "There could be bears out here," one of the women remarks. "No," the other woman insists. "The bears are all hibernating this time of year, aren't they?" They all collectively shiver at the thought of encountering a bear or anything else out on this lonely road, with nowhere to hide and no way to defend themselves. Best not to dwell too long on that thought, or they might find themselves paralyzed with fear. They still have who knows how many steps left to go before they can relax. They walk together in silence for a long time, listening for the sound of any dangerous criminals or bears creeping up behind them, but nothing comes. As they slowly progress, the sun begins to emerge on the horizon, flooding the landscape with warm light and chasing away the fear of the dark. "Look!" One of the ladies finally breaks the silence. "Up there!" She points, directing her friend's attention to a hill up ahead. There, they can make out the silhouettes of men on horseback, wearing suits of medieval armor. They're dressed as knights, like something out of a King Arthur story. "They must have come from the party." The others nod, agreeing. "Maybe we could ask for a ride?" one of the men suggests. "Or to borrow a horse," the other chimes in. In agreement, the four approach the knights in shining armor, waving their arms as they go. "Halt! Who goes there?" shouts one of the knights. "Oh, there's no need for that," the other woman laughs. "We came from the same place." "Art thou friend or foe?" the knight asks. He does not remove his helmet. His hand rests on the hilt of his sword. Thinking it all must be some kind of joke, the group of partiers continues up the hill. Spurred to action, the knight draws his sword, brandishing it threateningly. This is enough to stop the group in their tracks. "Is he serious?" mutters one woman to the other. "I can't tell," she replies. "That sword looks pretty real, though." Behind them, they hear the clip-clop of hooves and turn to see two other knights sitting atop massive black horses, brandishing weapons. "I think we should go," she yells to her friends, gathering her skirts and running back down the hill, but the rest of the group don't seem so willing to turn back. "You want to play a game? Then let's play," says one of the men as he draws his own sword, a perfect replica of one wielded by a character in his favorite fantasy television series, and tries to wave it back at the knight, but he promptly drops it on the grass. It's much heavier than he thought it would be. "Leave this place now, or face your death," a voice bellows from above him. "Now wait just a minute, who do you think you're talking to?" the man says as he bends down to pick his sword up again. But before he can finish, there's a flash of glimmering steel in the sunlight, followed by a spray of dark red liquid that hits the rest of the partygoers. They watch in silent horror as the man's head rolls off his shoulders before looking back at the man on horseback. This isn't a game at all. The blood-stained partygoers turn and run from these frightening strangers on horseback, but they can hear the thunderous hooves following them, the clank of the metal armor. The woman who first began to run looks back over her shoulder and can't believe what she sees. It's a rout as the mounted knights chase their fleeing foes, cutting them down in their retreat. All she can do is run and hope that they're too distracted with their current quarry to come after her. She doesn't know how long she runs before the sound of the massacre starts to fade out, but eventually, it does. Unable to run any longer, she collapses in the grass, frightened and confused by all that has happened. But with a scream, she jumps to her feet once again as she hears footsteps behind her. "You can't sleep here," says a man with a harsh, barking voice. "This is a restricted area." Before her stands the second group of armed men she's seen that day. This time, they're dressed in modern military attire. The Norwegian army? She can't be sure. The man doesn't have an accent. She starts to plead with the man, but he abruptly cuts her off. "What year is it?" he asks, his expression serious. She answers, confused, giving him the current year. He relaxes. "This area is closed to the public. It's not safe for you to be here. Let me escort you out of the perimeter," he offers. She tries to tell him what she's seen, the strange men on horseback, her friends being slaughtered before her eyes. When the man asks how she got there, she lets the whole story come pouring out. The billionaire, the invitation, the party. In her frantic state, she doesn't notice one of the guards, who radios to someone that it looks like he's done it again. The man questioning her changes his tone. He doesn't seem at all concerned about a murderous group of medieval knights in the woods. "Sounds like you had a bit too much to drink," he tells her before putting a comforting arm around her shoulders. And she doesn't even notice the syringe until she feels a prick on her upper arm before losing consciousness. The woman would be returned home and have no memories of the events that she witnessed. She'd never remember how much danger she was in when she had a brush with SCP-526. SCP-526, also known as the Valhalla Gate, is located on a hill in Norway. The SCP Foundation has hidden information on the gate's exact whereabouts, no doubt to stop curious civilians from wandering into danger or filming short viral videos. But if you find yourself in the Norwegian countryside, it can still easily be identified. Simply look for a ring of 9 stones, each standing at about 2 meters tall, placed in a 10-meter radius at the top of the hill. If you're not certain whether you're in the right place, or if you just happened upon another mysterious stone circle, look for the runes inscribed on the inward surface of each one. If the runes are there, you're in the right place. Or the wrong place, depending on who you ask. Every day at sunrise, give or take about 15 minutes, the gate will open and release a group of warriors from any point in history, fully armed and outfitted for battle. These can range from a small group of archers to 300 Spartans to groups of highly trained special operatives, and every member of the temporarily displaced group will be from the same period in history. As if they all ran through some sort of rift at the same time. Though these resulting manifestations rarely harm anyone, staying in place 92% of the time after they first appear on the hilltop, the remaining 8% lead to scenarios which can truly be a bloodbath. After all, to an army lost in the fog of war, emerging in a strange land in an unfamiliar time, anyone can look like an enemy. No matter how they behave on their initial appearance, those who cross through SCP-526 will attempt to attack anyone who approaches the anomaly. They will remain in the area until sunset, at which time they disappear, presumably returning back to wherever and whenever they originated. The SCP Foundation first discovered SCP-526 after a group of backpackers were hospitalized in the area. They claimed to have been walking through the hills when suddenly they were swarmed by, quote, a bunch of Vikings with axes. Naturally, this drew the attention of Foundation field agents, who soon found the mystical stone circle responsible for the attack. The survivors were given amnestics, and a cover story circulated blaming the claims of Vikings on recreational hallucinogens. Since this first incident, notable encounters between the Foundation and the soldiers traveling through the temporal gate have been few and far between, but there have been a few that were designated significant enough to be recorded in the official archives. 4, to be exact. In the 1990s, a member of the Foundation containment team spotted 40 figures making their way down the hill in the dim dawn light. They were holding longbows and swords, weapons at the ready as they made their descent. One member of the team, who it should be noted was on his very first day of containment duty, made the mistake of calling out to the strangers. "Gentlemen, please lower your weapons," he called. His request, however polite it may have been, was answered with an arrow to the shoulder. Thankfully, the rest of the team was able to swoop in and settle things before the situation could progress any further. The injured personnel was given prompt medical attention and reassigned to a desk job where he was much less likely to encounter flying projectiles of any kind. A few years later, the team of Foundation operatives placed at SCP-526 had started to grow complacent. There had not been a violent incident in ages, just a series of very confused people appearing at sunrise and milling around until they vanished at sunset. It seemed that most of the subjects passing through the temporal rift were not as bloodthirsty as one might expect. Then, one operative was startled out of a daydream by the thunk of a stone axe hitting a tree near his head. He and the rest of his team looked up to see a group of 30 men clad in animal skins pouring down the hillside, rushing right for them. In their fists, they held crude weapons carved from stone, their wild eyes, untamed beards, and blood-stained clothing becoming clearer as they grew closer. Fortunately for the SCP Foundation, these cavemen had brought clubs to a semi-automatic rifle fight. They opened fire, and within minutes, not a single hide-clad man was left standing. It was a bit awkward, looking at their fallen bodies for the rest of the day, but the team saw no point in moving them if they were just going to disappear that night anyway. One task force member spent the rest of the day looking at his hands, paranoid he may have shot one of his ancient ancestors and erased himself from the timeline in a back-to-the-future-like fashion. This was, thankfully, not the case. Several more years passed, and the century turned to usher in the new millennia. In the early 2000s, a platoon of 20 Russian soldiers, later identified when a Foundation officer attempted to translate several curses yelled at him by one of the men, materialized, wearing World War II uniforms and carrying rifles consistent with that time period. Most of them did not move from the hill, staying in a defensive position, but a few got a bit too bold and opened fire on the Foundation operatives. The fire was returned in kind, and 2 men were killed, but the rest were left unharmed for the remainder of the day. The final incident on record is particularly notable because, in this case, the soldiers that appeared did not belong to a particular country's military, nor were they from the distant past. There were 30 men and women, dressed in an uncomfortably recognizable uniform. These were the members of a lost SCP Foundation Mobile Task Force, all killed in action during a field mission several years prior. Wanting to avoid friendly fire, the operatives placed at the site attempted to speak to these MTF members, but they did not respond. Instead, they attacked and would not relent until air support arrived in the form of a Foundation AC-130 gunship, Thor's Hammer, leaving 3 dead and 11 wounded when the smoke finally cleared. This last encounter raised some difficult questions about the nature of SCP-526 and the mental state of those who passed through it. They seemed unable to recognize their own peers, unable to hear what they were saying. Their instinct to defend SCP-526 from any perceived invaders overrode whatever familiarity or loyalty they might ordinarily have for other Foundation operatives. It was a tragic, disquieting affair with no clear answers in sight. The SCP Foundation is of course no stranger to terminating its own, but the individual officers present for this incident reported a high rate of post-traumatic stress disorder, and several requested to be given amnestics in order to put a stop to recurring nightmares. The Foundation will not be able to learn more unless more of their own fallen soldiers pass through the gate. Even if they do, it is impossible to say whether they will be able to ask any questions or engage in a dialogue, or whether they will have to gun them down in another round of kill or be killed. Because there is no way to know what each new sunrise at SCP-526 will bring, the SCP Foundation has classified the anomaly as Euclid. As there is no way to move SCP-526 to any official Foundation site, the 15-kilometer radius around the anomaly has been converted into Armed Containment Area 31. The cover story for this area is a military weapon testing site, and there is a no-fly zone in effect there. A team of qualified field agents is placed on site in order to observe and neutralize any subjects that emerge from SCP-526. Because all is fair in war and, well, war, the agents placed there are permitted to use deadly force if their lives are threatened or the containment is jeopardized. 30 minutes before the sun comes up, the containment teams are placed on full alert and will keep their eyes on SCP-526 until the sun has set and all potential threats have disappeared. If a given day's apparitions are too aggressive or too numerous for the teams on the ground to contain, Mobile Task Force Sigma-9, or Valkyries, may assist via airstrike. Since the Foundation has set up its perimeter around SCP-526, no civilians have been harmed, though the same can't be said for Foundation personnel or the revolving door of strange warriors emerging on the hill. The protocol has been considered successful. I haven't yet been out to see the gate in person myself. I tend to be more of a pacifist, but if I ever do, I'll make sure to bring a shield, a bulletproof vest, and perhaps a full suit of armor. Why not? The best offense is a good defense, I always say.
When the businessman hears the diagnosis, all color and sound seem to drain out of the room. His life, a deflating balloon, a lanced boil. He'd been suffering headaches at work, the occasional nosebleed. Probably nothing, right? Probably just stress. Until he collapsed on the trading floor, and not long after, was sitting in the roaring belly of an MRI machine. Now, the words just hang in the air in front of him, huge and terrible. Brain cancer. Stage 4. Completely inoperable. Less than 6 months. His first instinct is to thrash against the bars of this new metaphorical cage. Chemo, radiation, green juice, experimental treatments in South America. But he can sense a grim finality in the doctor's tone that makes him realize there's no point in fighting this. He's going to die, and it's gonna hurt. At only 43 years old, the businessman had felt on top of the world. He worked on Wall Street, brokering the kind of high-pressure trades that could make or break a Fortune 500 company. He was the first one in the office every morning, and the last one to leave each night, without fail. He's a closer. He gets the job done. Sure, he's never had time for family. Okay, he doesn't hang out with his friends as much as he should, and maybe he hasn't taken a real vacation since he was in his 30s, but he always told himself that's something he can save for his early retirement. He's got his whole life ahead of him, after all. Imagine the fun he can have when he's made the deals of a lifetime and gets to retire early. And now, his whole life is still in front of him. Just there's only 6 months of it, and he's liable to spend the last few intubated in hospice care. Flash forward a month, and sadly, things are so much worse than the businessman ever imagined. Even on the high-strength painkillers they seem to dose him with on the hour, the pain in his head is unimaginable. Somewhere between a high, piercing whir and a dull throb, like a dentist's drill is meticulously tracing its way across and around every fold in his diseased brain. It hurts too much to even scream. The pain tightens the muscles around his jaw, locking teeth against teeth. He hasn't been out of his hospital bed for 2 days. He's terribly afraid, the way things are going, that he might never get out of his hospital bed again. All those years he'd wasted in the office, and all he got from them was a signed sympathy card. Get well soon, like he'd ever get well again. It was almost taunting. He'd given them everything, and got nothing in return. As he writhed in pain in his isolated bed, he imagined them already filing the notice for his replacement, help wanted, like they were the ones who needed help here. Soon, luck smiles upon him, and another dose of painkillers sends him off to uneasy sleep. It's the only way he can sleep now, even if this kind of medication-induced slumber feels like waiting around in a kiddie pool when you need to be fully submerged. But this time, something strange happens. He's lifted from his shallow chemical sleep as though he's being levitated from his dirty bedsheets, taken to a beautiful green place where the sun shines, but it doesn't hurt his eyes. Then he's walking barefoot across cool grass that he can feel between his toes. It's the most connected to nature that he's felt since he was a child, before he moved away to the city to follow his ambitions at the cost of his dreams. This place is different. He's approaching a copse of trees, seeming almost to guard a huge bush of holly and honeysuckle within.
Is this heaven? He thinks. No, even for a dream. This is too tangible, too real.
He notices in this dream that for the first time he can even remember, he's not in pain. He's been delivered from his terrible suffering. An answered prayer. A kind of welcome tiredness hits him, like after a hard day's honest work. He lays down in the grass just for a little shut-eye. Even after a couple weeks in bed, this feels like the first time he's gotten genuine rest. And that's when the thought enters his mind. Not his own thought, but in his brain nonetheless.
Come find this place, and your pain will be at an end, my friend.
It's an offer too good to pass up, and when he wakes with a new sense of calm, of purpose. The pain is still there, but it isn't the dominant force. His father had once said to him,
"A man can endure hell if he knows he's going to get out."
And now, decades later, he understands what the old man actually meant. He's in hell, but that's okay. He knows the way out now. Drawing upon the last of his strength, he crawls out the hospital window. Lucky for him, he's on the ground floor anyway, so it's not too daring a stunt for a late-stage cancer patient to pull off. He can sense somehow that the wonderful place from his dream isn't far from here. He can run to it if he can summon up the strength, the willpower. And if all those 18-hour days in the office had taught him one thing, it's that he isn't lacking in willpower. So he runs. He runs barefoot across the blacktop, across roads where cars swerve and honk and call him crazy, across mud and grass and bramble. He must look like a madman in his hospital smock, running with holy purpose. But he couldn't care less. He knows the way out now. He knows the way out, and he's going to take it. Seconds turn to minutes, and minutes turn to hours, and he keeps running until he sees it. The dream becoming glorious reality. The lush grass, the trees, the holly, and the honeysuckle in all its beautiful, verdant majesty. He enters its presence and feels the pain in his head melt away. All the thoughts of agony and suffering, of how enfeebled he'd be when the intruder growing inside his brain saw fit to assassinate him. None of that matters now. He lays on the grass, more content than he's ever been, and smiles. Life is wonderful. Death is wonderful. Every sight, every thought, every concept, it all just drips with thick, sweet wonder. The grass and the vines reach up to receive him. They wrap his body, envelop it, weave into it, through it, become one with him as he becomes one with it. The plants engulf him, consume him. He knows it's happening, and he doesn't mind one bit. This is it, the dignified death that his cancer would have denied him, his happy ending. When the process is done, the plants recede. The businessman is no more, just an empty space where he once was. He is nothing. He is everything. Death can be such a bittersweet passage to a place the rest of us can't tread. but that passage is eased somewhat by an encounter with SCP-046, also known as the Green Relief. It's a cylindrical area of soft green grass also populated by a dense thicket of plant life, all tangled together into a large bush: white oak, European holly bush, and Kentucky honeysuckle. It recalls the fondest summer days of our youth, frolicking through green spaces that felt almost enchanted with all the carefree spirit of youth. To most of us, other than seeming like a visually appealing work of nature, there wouldn't even appear to be anything anomalous about SCP-046. This is not the case for anyone afflicted with a severe chronic or terminal illness, whose relationship with SCP-046 is likely to differ radically. You see, SCP-046 releases a psychic call to the severely injured and dying within a 50-kilometer radius. In their medicated dreams, they'll see the plants and imagine themselves laying down on that soft, cool grass and dying in peace on their own terms. And it doesn't just affect humans. Even non-sapient animals suffering from incurable diseases or wounds that won't heal will start dreaming about the sacred place. All these affected individuals will feel the need to make a pilgrimage to SCP-046, knowing on some level that it's the very last choice within their power to make, the thing that will bring them peace at long last. And before the Foundation discovered this place, it's exactly what they did. They sought out SCP-046, and upon entering the clearing, they felt the pain of their symptoms receding. They felt an odd sense of calm, of hope, something that they may not have felt in months or even years since their untreatable diagnosis. On feeling this, they would lay on the grass and let nature take its course. The Bermuda grass would grow around them, enveloping their body as a feeling of euphoria coursed through their endocrine system. A death, as their body spouts plants and melts gracefully into the collective, but not an unhappy end. A feeling of having been willingly reclaimed by the earth itself. There are no compulsive properties to the anomalous abilities of SCP-046, meaning it will never take anyone who doesn't truly choose to be taken. It's a way out for people who are genuinely doomed to be betrayed by their own bodies otherwise. People being taken by SCP-046 remain lucid and able to communicate throughout the whole process until they've been fully absorbed. During this time, they recount only positive feelings: joy, hope, relief, pleasure. They know what's happening to them and have no problem with it. Their bodies are completely broken down into nothingness within a 2-hour period, and their nutrients are absorbed into the plants. They have, in the truest sense, rejoined the life cycle. Because of the benevolent nature of this anomaly, and the fact that it cannot take anyone who isn't explicitly willing, it's been given the Safe class. Containment procedures are appropriately measured as a result. The land has been acquired by the SCP Foundation and converted into private property, with several layers of fencing to keep it secluded from unauthorized personnel. The perimeter of SCP-046 is to be staffed by no fewer than 10 armed guards. However, those with life-threatening or terminal illnesses should be permitted to enter and have access to SCP-046, but only after passing a psychological screening period to make sure that they don't have self-destructive tendencies. This anomaly provides a valuable service and, as such, should not necessarily be separated from the public entirely, just subject to Foundation control and screening procedures to make sure nothing gets out of hand, because we can't avoid our date with eternity in the end. One way or another, we'll all end up in the dirt. Is it not better to become a part of the world that gave you life in the first place without pain or sorrow? Because that seems to be exactly what this unique anomaly provides. Now check out... Wait. No. Something's wrong here. These files. Oh no. Everything I just told you is only half true. These files were written by Dr. Edward Carter, a respected senior researcher at the SCP Foundation who also happens to be the project director for SCP-046. But the O5 Council, the individuals at the very top of the Foundation's hierarchy, have directly intervened and ordered serious revisions for the safety of all involved and the proper containment of SCP-046. Here is the true story. The first part happens exactly as before. The businessman with the misspent life, with all the achievements you'd read out in a resume, and none of the ones you'd want printed in your obituary, is told that he has brain cancer and only 6 months left to live. That estimation still proves to be optimistic as he descends into a world of pain and weakness far sooner than he thought. He still receives a dream telling him of a wonderful, perfect place out in nature where all his problems will disappear. He still climbs out of the window and runs, spurred on by his desire for freedom from all the pains of his disease. He still makes the 50-kilometer odyssey to the clearing barefoot. It's when he arrives that everything changes. He doesn't feel the warmth and comfort he did in the dream. No, when he sees the plants, he feels as though he's a puppet being dragged by invisible strings, a man no longer moving under his own power. The businessman approaches the plants and falls to his knees in front of them, ready to receive their communion. But his pain isn't about to disappear. It's about to get so much worse. The mold gets him first, spreading across his body with paralyzing speed, melting tendons and shrinking muscles. He tries to scream, but feels that bacteria inside him is wasting away his lungs. He's being eaten from the inside out by ever-growing colonies of microorganisms as the plants just silently watch without eyes. Then from the rustling leaves spews forth a cloud of buzzing, chittering insects that set upon the businessman and devour, eating him a microgram at a time in their teeming millions. They devour until all that's left is silence. At least, in the process of eating the rest of him, they ate his cancer too. And that's that. Another prey lured and consumed. That deeply disquieting little tale is the O5 Council-approved version of SCP-046, codenamed to them the Predatory Hollybush. The urgency of their intervention comes not only from what they see as Dr. Carter's misrepresentation of the anomaly's true abilities and intent, but also from a growing fear that 046's mind-manipulating powers may be far stronger than first imagined. This could even extend to a powerful mimetic effect on the very Foundation researchers tasked with keeping it contained. So what is this anomaly really? According to the O5 Council's version of the file, it's a malicious predatory being that slowly and insidiously imposes a psychic influence on the terminally ill, the mentally unwell, and people with self-destructive tendencies. It appears to them in their dreams like a siren song, if they have the misfortune of entering that aforementioned 50-kilometer radius of the anomaly, telling them that it will give them a respite from their suffering. But this is a poisonous lie that will lure them into even greater suffering than even their disease could provide. But still, in the depths of their desperation for any kind of escape from the terrible set of circumstances they find themselves in, they'll heed that siren's call and make their way to SCP-046 one way or another. But according to these files, they won't find that sense of dampening calm described earlier. They'll feel a powerful, almost magnetic psychic force. The kind of force that drags an addict towards the needle or the pill bottle, what the French call l'appel du vide, or the call of the void in English. They won't lay before the plant. No, they'll bow before it, and then the feeding will begin. But it's not the tranquil, gentle absorption into the grass and earth. It's a violent and painful process, as SCP-046's prey is quickly assaulted by a mixture of anomalously aggressive black mold spores, flesh-eating bacteria, and anomalous unknown insects. This continues until the entire body is paralyzed and decomposed alive, where it then becomes sustenance for the plant. We still don't know whether the anomaly is capable of growth or if the extent of its feeding could potentially lead to an increase of the range of its psychic abilities. The O5 Council has no interest whatsoever in tempting fate and finding out. They have also personally demanded an immediate reclassification of the anomaly from safe to Euclid containment class, and to have the severity of its containment procedures increased accordingly. Under the revised rules, the land has still been obtained by the Foundation and made into private property, but the layers of security around the perimeter have been beefed up considerably. Multiple fences, barricades, and even lethal effect traps, such as landmines, pit traps, and electric fences with fatal levels of energy, along with a number of firmly worded signs stating that this is indeed private property and severe penalties for trespassing apply. Any SCP Foundation staff working within 50 kilometers of SCP-046 are given regular and extremely rigorous tests to root out both early signs of life-threatening illnesses and any potential self-destructive thought patterns. Anyone who becomes injured to any extent within this zone is to be extracted and taken to a hospital outside the anomaly's effective range, just in case it somehow uses the state of injury as a way into the victim's mind. Any plants growing within range of SCP-046 are to be extracted and destroyed, the same going for any animals that attempt to approach it. Any members of staff who show an unusual interest in SCP-046 are to be treated with extreme suspicion, and then made to undergo a thorough medical and psychological examination. All alterations to the SCP-046 file are to be directly approved by the O5 Council, and anyone who attempts to make any alterations without the explicit permission of the O5 Council are to be immediately demoted and reassigned to a different case. Which reminds me. Dr. Carter, for his part, protested the revisions. He left an addendum on the file in direct opposition to the O5 Council's ruling, saying, "There is no evidence whatsoever that SCP-046 is predatory or has any desire to harm any creature unwilling to expose itself to SCP-046's effects. Suggest original containment procedures be reenacted and voluntary access to SCP-046 continued. No individuals are capable of breaching Foundation security once exposed to SCP-046. As such, there is no reason to deny afflicted individuals the opportunity for relief. Likewise, there is no reason to make this entity seem more hostile than it actually is, aside from a desire to portray every object in Foundation custody as dangerous. Some things must be contained simply because they are strange." Sadly for him, Dr. Carter's plea fell upon uninterested ears. In fact, his request actually painted him in a worse light in the eyes of his superiors. If SCP-046 does indeed have a mimetic effect on the researchers who work with it, then Dr. Carter has likely been compromised by that very effect. In light of the potential dangers of having someone who was essentially an unknowing double agent for the very anomaly he was researching involved with the project, the Council saw fit to reassign Dr. Carter to the SCP-1250 research team. In stark contrast to the extreme dangers posed by SCP-046, 1250 is just a selection of cassette tapes where the finer details of the content changes slightly with each time one of them is played. Though who's to stop this same effect on a long enough timeline befalling everyone on the SCP-046 research team? That is, if the mimetic effect claimed by the O5 Council is even real. Which leads us really to the parting question regarding all things SCP-046. Which story do you believe? Are you with Dr. Carter, believing the plants to be an angel of mercy, freeing the doomed from their pain? Or do you stand with the O5 Council in believing that 046 is a wolf in sheep's clothing, preying on the vulnerable in their lowest, most desperate moment for an easy meal? It's an answer I can't give you, so perhaps just let me know which side you agree with down in the comments below. The ground rumbled. Not like thunder. No, this was more like something was angry. The young man's feet slapped against the earth, his breath coming in short, ragged bursts. Behind him was something enormous, something that shouldn't exist, but it did, and it was closing in. He didn't know exactly what it was, but it was hungry, and that was enough for him. He had heard the stories, bigger than a mountain, faster than a lightning bolt, teeth like jagged rocks. He was running for his life. The trees blurred as he dashed through them, the predator's growls vibrating in his bones. No time to think, just run. Then he saw it up ahead, the cave, the dark, inviting mouth of the cave. The young man didn't hesitate. He dove inside, nearly tripping over his own feet, hands scraping against the cold rock as he shoved his body deeper into the darkness. Then, silence. For all of 2 seconds. Thud, thud, thud. The growls outside the cave grew louder. It was still there. The creature had followed him in. There was no escape. He pressed himself against the cold stone, trying to slow his breathing, praying for the predator to... what? Get tired? Forget about him? Then, there were voices.
Go, go!
Someone hissed.
Push the rock!
The young man's eyes widened. Oh no. It was the tribe. They had been following him, apparently. They weren't just watching from a distance. They were playing their part, and it looked like they were really into it. A woman, the leader of the group, appeared from behind a bush, arms flailing dramatically.
Seal it! Seal it!
She shouted, looking way too enthusiastic for someone trying to trap a massive beast. A man next to her tried pushing a rock twice his size. It barely budged.
Get off me!
He growled, trying to wrangle it with all the grace of a half-drunk bear.
I swear this thing was lighter at the last rehearsal.
One by one, the tribe emerged, looking like a confused parade of squirrels who'd just remembered they were supposed to be doing something important. They scurried out of the bushes, arms full of rocks that were nowhere near as big as they needed to be. The entire scene felt like a bad play. One guy rolled a rock that was comically small and got stuck under it. Another two bickered over a particularly large one, trying to shove it up a hill like it was a toddler at a water park.
More rocks,
Yelled a third, as if they were building a house, not sealing a death trap. Through all this chaos, the young man barely had the energy to protest. He'd been running for his life, only to end up helping these people. If this wasn't the weirdest moment of his life, he didn't know what was. Finally, after some truly embarrassing grunting, pushing, and a very inappropriate dance involving a boulder, the entrance was sealed. There it was, the cave entrance, blocked by rocks that could have been knocked over by a strong gust of wind.
Done!
One of them shouted, hands on his hips like he'd just won a race. The tribe paused, looking at their work. They had somehow sealed in the beast with rocks that could barely stop a rabbit, let alone a monster that could probably crush a tree with its tail.
Well,
The leader said, nodding.
that should do it. Safe, for now.
The young man, now thoroughly bewildered, slumped against the cave wall.
For now?
He croaked, and that's when they started to celebrate. They sang a little song, something that sounded like a goose being stepped on while being dragged through the mud. It wasn't a pleasant melody, but it was full of enthusiasm. A young woman grabbed a bunch of random flowers, tossing them onto the ground like she was handing out raffle prizes at a carnival.
Thank you for your sacrifice,
she called, as if he had volunteered for this. Another person, clearly too happy for someone who was supposed to be helping seal a cave of doom, started doing a strange little jig. Their feet shuffled side to side in a way that could only be described as prehistoric dad dance moves. The young man stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the bizarre series of events. His legs ached, his chest burned, and his fate? Well, it was sealed, all right. The predator was trapped, and the tribe? Well, they thought they were safe. Little did they know, the real beast was still inside, waiting, hungry, watching. But for now, the tribe was oblivious. They were too busy dancing, singing, and congratulating themselves for their successful trap. And somewhere in the dark, the young man let out a long, tired sigh. Was this really what passed for a victory? Yes. Yes, it was. Thousands of years later, the cave had become a part of something much larger, a palace no less. The mouth of the cave had been hidden, buried beneath the mighty palace of King Minos of Crete. If anyone knew the truth about what mythical thing laid below, no one bothered to say anything. But the labyrinth was real. The endless maze beneath the palace, its twisting paths carved into the stone, had a reputation, and it wasn't just the locals who feared it. Every 9 years, the people of Athens were required to send a grim tribute, a procession of 7 sons and 7 daughters, sacrificed to the beast that lived in the maze. The Minotaur, as the prehistoric creature had come to be called, was a terror that even King Minos himself could not control. He didn't have to. The tribute kept the beast fed, the people of Athens in line, and the king's power unquestioned. But one year, a wrinkle in the plan appeared. Theseus, son of King Aegeus of Athens, volunteered. He wasn't going to be just another tribute. No, he had something else in mind. He'd heard the stories. The Minotaur had been contained once, long ago, and Theseus believed that this time he could finish it off, kill the beast, become a hero, and while the Greek gods watched, he would save Athens from the cruel demands of this Cretan king. When Theseus and the other tributes arrived on the island of Crete, they were met by a spectacle of grandeur and gold. The palace of King Minos stood tall, a monument to human ambition, while the labyrinth, dark and secretive, loomed beneath it. But Theseus wasn't concerned with the palace or the labyrinth's exterior. His mind was elsewhere, on Ariadne, the beautiful daughter of Minos. He saw her from the moment they landed, her eyes catching the sunlight, the perfect distraction. He knew what he had to do.
You should help me.
He whispered to her one evening at a dinner banquet.
I can kill the beast, but I can't do it alone.
Ariadne raised an eyebrow, the slightest hint of curiosity in her eyes.
Why should I help you?
She asked, arms crossed, as if she already knew what was coming.
Well,
Theseus grinned. Because if you don't,
then I'll be stuck there forever. You don't want that, do you?
She scoffed, but the spark of interest was clear.
And why do you think you can kill the Minotaur?
Theseus flashed her a grin. I'm born to be a hero." She stared at him for a long moment, measuring him, and then shrugged. "All right, but if I help you, you have to come back and marry me, because my father will be really mad," she said as she pulled a small ball of thread from her belt. "Oh, I will," Theseus said confidently. Too confidently. He took the thread from her, understanding the plan. She would help him navigate the maze, but more than that, she would keep him alive. And so, with her help, Theseus ventured into the labyrinth. But let's get one thing straight. Theseus didn't kill the Minotaur. Oh no. According to the myth, that's how the story goes. Theseus is hailed as a hero who killed the beast and returned victorious, having overcome impossible odds. But that's not what really happened. What actually happened was a bit messier. The maze, like the tribe's dance, had its own rhythm, and as Theseus maneuvered through the twisting corridors, chasing the echo of his own footsteps, he realized the beast wasn't exactly what they said it was. Sure, it was terrifying, huge, and, yes, covered in muscle and fury, but it wasn't invincible. It wasn't unbeatable. It was, however, trappable. In the heart of the maze, the Minotaur lunged at him, teeth snapping, claws slashing through the air, and Theseus did the only thing he could think of. He ran. Fast. Using the thread Ariadne gave him, he darted through the maze, winding his way back and forth, weaving the string behind him like a breadcrumb trail. He could hear the beast following, but the closer he got to the exit, the less he cared about whether or not the Minotaur was still behind him. He'd made it. He was out. Ariadne waited at the entrance, and as soon as Theseus stepped into the light, he threw his arms up in triumph. "I did it!" he shouted. "I killed the Minotaur!" Ariadne looked at him, confused. "You... what?" "I killed it," Theseus said again, more forcefully this time. He was sure he had. In the distance, there was a growl, low, rumbling. The beast was still alive, still waiting. Ariadne didn't say anything. She just stared at him for a long time. But Theseus had already started to walk away, claiming his mythical hero's victory. Ariadne watched him go, the ball of thread dangling loosely in her hands. She had helped him, yes, but she knew the truth. There had never been a hero here. A few more 1,000 years later, Crete, its ancient ruins now barely recognizable, had been pummeled by the fury of Nazi planes. But where buildings fell, something else rose. Discovery. Beneath the wreckage of the ancient Minoan palace, something had been waiting. It had been waiting for a long time. A group of Nazi soldiers scoured the rubble of the once great palace searching for loot. They weren't interested in ruins or history. No, they had been sent to collect anything that could be sold. Ancient Greek treasures? Perfect. Roman artifacts? Even better. But when one soldier knocked over a pile of broken stone, something caught his eye. It was an oddly shaped stone slab, embedded into the earth, covered in debris. It was like it had been forgotten, or perhaps hidden. "Hey, look at this!" he shouted, pulling at the stone with an eager grunt. The others rushed over. They had all been waiting for a lucky find like this. One of them, a bit too eager, grabbed a pickaxe and started hacking at the slab. After a few strikes, it cracked. The soldiers looked at each other. This wasn't just a tomb. No, this was a big one, the kind of tomb you don't find every day. The door was massive, thick stone and etched with strange carvings. "Should we open it?" one soldier asked, his voice sounding more like a question than a command. "Why not? We've come this far," the Nazi officer in charge muttered, grinning. The entrance creaked open, revealing what appeared to be nothing but darkness. The soldiers stared at each other, unsure of what to make of it. One by one, they shuffled inside, expecting gold, maybe jewels, but definitely not whatever waited in the shadows. Inside, the space seemed far too big for the entrance, stretching endlessly, like the stone tomb was a portal to a place far beyond their expectations. The walls closed in around them. It was alive with a strange, anomalous energy, but they kept going. What else was there to do? They'd come this far. "Find the treasure," the officer snapped, "and make it quick." As they pushed forward, their flashlights flickered. Their hearts raced. It was only moments before one of them at the front screamed. A horrific, guttural roar echoed from somewhere deep in the maze. His body was gone, swallowed by the darkness. The rest of the soldiers froze, the air thick with fear. But the officer wasn't about to give up that easily. "We're not leaving without something. Move out!" he shouted, his eyes hardening. "Whatever it is, we have guns." One by one, the soldiers continued to venture into the labyrinth, their breaths heavy, their steps unsure. They didn't know it yet, but they had just stepped into something that didn't follow the laws of nature. Only one man made it back to the entrance alive. He staggered out, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. In his hand, he clutched ancient gold jewelry, but there was no pride in his grip, only raw fear. The others were nowhere to be seen.
What happened?
One soldier asked, his voice barely a whisper.
There's something in there.
The man said, voice trembling.
A beast. It's not like anything we've seen. It's still in there, waiting. Don't.
His voice cracked.
Don't go back in.
The officer looked at him like he had just heard a joke.
You're telling me there's a beast?
He laughed, more to himself than anyone else.
I don't know what you saw, but there's treasure in there. And we're getting it.
The survivor shook his head. The Nazi soldier's smile faded. He pulled out his pistol, aiming it at the soldier.
You're going back in,
he said, his voice low and dangerous. The soldier froze, his body trembling.
I won't. You can't make me.
Without hesitation, the officer pulled the trigger. The body slumped to the ground, lifeless.
All right then,
the officer muttered, slipping the gun back into its holster. Clearly he was the one in charge now. He turned to the others.
Back up the tomb. We're taking this to England. There's a buyer. They've been paying top dollar for looted artifacts from Greece. And this thing,
he gestured to the dark entrance.
It's going to make us rich. They'll want it. We'll sell it. We'll be kings.
And just like that, the tomb, the maze, and the beast that lay in waiting was packed up and shipped off to England just like any other treasure. When the spoils of war arrived in England, they weren't just in crates marked fragile. No, they were delivered to the extravagant manor of a particularly wealthy English lord, a man who had spent his life collecting, no, curating, the finest treasures history had to offer. And now, with the war over, the spoils of conquest were his for the taking. Among his new acquisitions were priceless Parthenon sculptures, finely detailed pottery, and of course, the crown jewel, the tomb from the Minoan Palace in Crete. The tomb wasn't much to look at on the outside, just a plain stone box, really. But when the Lord opened it and peered inside, his eyes widened in disbelief. The space inside was vast. The whole thing was far bigger than it had any right to be. It didn't fit. It was like opening a cupboard and finding a whole new world inside. Naturally, the Lord wasn't about to dive into this mystery without a bit of flair. This, he decided, required a proper crew. So he hired the best and brightest, electricians, builders, plumbers, no more of this amateur nonsense. He was a man of taste. He had grand plans for the tomb.
Let's make this a proper exploration,
he declared, gesturing toward the labyrinth inside.
We'll run electrical lines through it, light bulbs on the ceiling, a nice little chandelier in there for flair. It'll be a living space, you see. Very modern.
Naturally, he left the entrance door wide open. Who would dare steal from him? His home was practically a museum. He could trust the help. And so, the crew got to work. They strung wires through the corridors, placed light bulbs on the ceiling like they were installing lamps in a drawing room. They even found a curious little trickle of water running through the walls.
Ah,
the foreman said, rubbing his hands together with glee.
Nice bit of plumbing could make this even more impressive. Let's get some pipes in here, lads.
This way, the water wouldn't mess with the electrical equipment. He had the situation under control, or so he thought. As the crew began fitting the walls with pipes, the atmosphere grew thicker. The deeper they worked, the colder it seemed to get, but no one complained. After all, this was England, and it was winter. Everything was a bit chilly. That was when they heard it. A low rumble deep in the bowels of the tomb. Something growling. At first, they shrugged it off. Maybe it was the pipes shifting, the walls settling. But no, it grew louder. The foreman raised his head.
What in God's name was that?
His voice barely a whisper. The noise that erupted was enough to make the foreman drop his clipboard and run. The crew scrambled to pack up, but it was too late. The beast appeared, with claws and teeth, and a hunger no human could satisfy. Most of the crew didn't even make it to the door. By the time the last man bolted, the beast had already claimed its prize. One by one, the workers were picked off, their screams muffled by the thick stone walls. Only one man, a young carpenter, managed to escape. He ran, legs pumping, his heart a terrified rhythm in his chest. As he reached the entrance, he threw himself against the door, sealing it with all his might. The The Lord, who had been sipping a brandy in the garden nearby, sauntered over, casually adjusting his waistcoat.
Well, what's the delay?
The carpenter, pale as a ghost, looked up at him with wild eyes.
There's a beast in there.
The carpenter gasped. The Lord raised an eyebrow, unfazed.
A beast, you say?
He asked, his tone laced with mockery.
Nonsense, it's just some animal. A wild boar.
It's an old tomb, nothing more. A little superstition to keep us all on edge. He didn't even blink before pulling a cigar from his coat pocket.
You,
he said to the carpenter,
will go back in there. I'm not paying good money for a superstition. You'll go in there and find the treasure. That's the job.
The carpenter tried to argue, but the Lord's gaze was cold. It was an order. The carpenter knew he didn't have a choice. With trembling hands, the carpenter unsealed the tomb, and the moment he opened it, the maze had changed again. The paths were different. The walls had moved, twisting like something alive. The carpenter froze.
No,
he whispered, stepping back.
I won't go in there again. It's not the same, it's...
Before he could finish, a gunshot rang out, cutting him off.
Pathetic,
the Lord muttered, watching the carpenter fall. He wasn't even angry, just annoyed, as if a servant had broken a vase. The next day, a fresh team of workers reluctantly unsealed the tomb again. The Lord, as usual, was lounging nearby, sipping his brandy, looking far too pleased with himself for someone so oblivious. He could already taste the gold, the treasure, the profit. The foreman opened the door. The new crew stepped in, their boots crunching on the gravel floor. They had a little more confidence, having heard the fun story from the carpenter, but they also didn't quite know what to expect. And when they looked inside, they were dumbfounded.
Blimey,
one of them muttered. The maze had completely changed. The walls that had been one way the day before were now another. The path the previous crew had carefully mapped out was gone. No light fixtures, no pipes. Everything they'd worked on, gone, vanished, like a dream that slipped away as soon as you woke up. The foreman scratched his head.
All right, lads, let's get to work.
And work they did. They put in new electrical wires, strung up more lighting fixtures, and even found that same curious trickle of water in the walls. But as soon as they began installing new pipes to siphon off the water, they heard it. That same deep, low, guttural growl. The workers were attacked. A few managed to survive and refused to enter the tomb again. And so it continued. The door to the tomb was opened again the next morning, and the morning after that, and every single time the maze had changed. Walls shifted, paths disappeared, new turns appeared where there had been none. It was as if the tomb, the maze, was alive, changing, adapting, moving. Every time the workers managed to run some basic electrical lines and fit a few light bulbs, they would get close to digging into the walls to put in the pipes, and then the beast would strike. Every single time. It never stopped. One or two survivors would crawl out, their faces ashen, their bodies cut up, half crazed, babbling the same story. And each time, the Lord, gritting his teeth, would order the workers back in. And each time, the same thing would happen. The beast, the maze, the shifting walls. Finally, after years of this, the Lord grew old and tired. Tired of the maze, the beast, and the stupid treasure hunt.
Enough is enough,
the Lord said to himself one evening, sitting by the fire, nursing a glass of brandy.
I've spent enough time and money.
The rest of the treasures, the statues, the pottery, the pieces of the Parthenon of the ancient Greek Acropolis, well, those would all go to a museum, of course. They would make a proper display of it. But the tomb, that cursed tomb, that wouldn't go to the museum. The Lord had grown too fond of the idea of getting rid of it to really hand it over. So he had the tomb packed into a metal crate and sent off to one of the poorest parts of London, a slum littered with the unhoused, the forgotten. Within days, the first disappearances were reported. At first, no one thought much of it. People went missing all the time in the slums. No one bothered to ask why. But then the numbers grew. The story started to spread. Entire groups of unhoused people vanishing overnight. And what was worse, no trace was left behind. No signs of struggle, no blood. They were just gone. Eventually, the Foundation was pinged and immediately retrieved this anomaly for further research. This supposed tomb is actually a real anomaly and has been classified by the Foundation as SCP-432. It's a steel storage cabinet, 2 meters tall, 1.2 meters wide, and 1 meter deep. From the outside, it looks like an ordinary, albeit worn, piece of storage furniture, with its matte green exterior covered in corrosion and scratches from years of exposure. The doors are simple, fitted with a slide bolt and a padlock for security. But when one opens the doors, they're not greeted by shelves or a storage space. Instead, they're faced with an extra-dimensional labyrinth. The space inside seems to defy the normal laws of physics, as it's far larger than the cabinet's external dimensions suggest. Inside is a maze of corridors made of heavily rusted steel. The corridors are lit by flickering household light bulbs, many of which are broken. Some walls are lined with steel pipes carrying cold water, though the source and destination of this water are completely unknown. It's drinkable, but it contains low oxygen and traces of iron oxide. The maze itself is impossible to map accurately. Every time the cabinet is closed and reopened, the entrance shifts to a completely different part of the labyrinth. No one can predict how the layout will change. As for those who venture inside, there have been no confirmed survivors, only remains. Some suggest starvation is the cause, but there's also evidence pointing to something far more dangerous, SCP-432-1, a large predatory entity that inhabits the maze. Its exact species is still unidentified, but it has been responsible for the deaths of multiple personnel. Now there's more to this anomaly than just the danger it presents. Technology, GPS units, phones, remote devices, fails after traveling about 20 meters into the maze. The only form of communication that still works are high-gain radio transmissions, though even those become heavily interfered with the deeper you go. Several expeditions have been sent into SCP-432 with D-Class personnel in an attempt to map the interior, but progress has been slow and dangerous. No further expeditions can be authorized without approval from at least 2 Level 4 personnel. What we do know is that the cabinet was constructed in the early 1950s, but the artifacts recovered from the maze have been traced back to much earlier periods. This suggests the maze, and perhaps the cabinet itself, may be linked to something far older, something not yet fully understood. As for containment, SCP-432 remains locked at all times. The key is secured in a nearby security station and is guarded by 3 Level 3 personnel. There are no additional special containment procedures needed, but we must be vigilant. There's much more we don't know about this anomaly, and it's essential we continue studying it while keeping it contained. A hand clasps around your throat, cutting off your scream. You try to move, but the hands of the 2 people restraining you won't allow it. You're being dragged towards something monstrous and terrible in the corner, something hiding under a white sheet. You will die a painful death, and the ones dragging you towards it are your parents. As the dewy green of summer begins to fade, the grass drying, the air chilling, and the leaves turning shades of fire and gold, most children's thoughts turn to Halloween. Visions of fun-sized candy bars spilling out of plastic pumpkin buckets, of ill-fitting rubber masks that smell like the back of a party store, of candy apples and ringing doorbells, and terrifying their friends with scary stories. It's a magical time where anyone can be anything, and candy is free to anyone who asks the question, trick or treat. But as those children get older, Halloween begins to lose its magic. They age out of trick-or-treating and no longer find themselves amused by carving pumpkins or screaming at plastic skeletons in their neighbors' yards. They age out of the sense of wonder, and they find that their neighbors aren't as keen to give away candy to someone with a driver's license. But some children hold on to that love of Halloween into adulthood, transforming the childlike joy into an appreciation for parties, more mature scary stories with blood and guts aplenty, and yes, themed baked goods. You're never too old to enjoy a Rice Krispie treat shaped like a ghost. At least that's what the sorority girl planning the biggest Halloween party on campus at her small university believes. She has festooned the sorority house with fake cobwebs and ghosts made of hanging bits of gauze, with plastic spiders and zombies made of rubber. There are the classic plastic skeletons, the jack-o'-lanterns filled with battery-powered candles, no fire hazards here, and of course, a huge cauldron filled with punch and dry ice. Smoke billows over the sides of the cauldron as she stirs the garish but inviting lime-green liquid inside. She has the lights rigged up to give the place an eerie red glow, and has the perfect playlist of Halloween music put together. Now she just needs to wait for the guests to arrive. At first, she worries that no one will come. The first few people to ring the doorbell turn out to be trick-or-treaters, and she sends them away with a fistful of candy bars and a smile. But each time, she is secretly a little disappointed. About an hour after she finished setting up, guests begin to arrive. Even if not everyone at school is into Halloween, there are very few college students who will pass up an opportunity for a party.
and before long, the house is filled with dancing pirates, vampires sipping cups of punch, werewolves digging into bowls of chips, and cats flirting with dogs. Everyone is dressed up and embracing the Halloween spirit, and the girl couldn't be happier. She's been so busy playing hostess that she almost forgot to dress up, but she takes a moment to steal away upstairs and put on her costume. A classic witch costume, black dress, black shoes, and complete with a pointy black hat. As she heads back downstairs, dressed up and ready to have a great time, she takes a moment to survey the crowd. It seems like everyone on campus decided to come to her party. The girl is going to get herself a drink and settle in to enjoy her party when she hears the doorbell ring. Someone else is here. But as she walks toward the door, she pauses for a moment, an icy chill of dread washing over her. The party guests know that they can just walk right in. That's what they've been doing all night. And it's almost midnight, much too late for trick-or-treaters. Who's out there? She peers through the peephole and sees someone in a rudimentary ghost costume, covered head to toe in a white sheet. Even if it's someone she knows, she wouldn't be able to recognize them like that. She can't explain why, but she has a bad feeling about this person. She doesn't want to be rude, but she wants to let them in even less. She turns back away from the door, ready to let the stranger stand on her porch all night, and finds all of her party guests standing still, staring at the door, staring at her. She tries to laugh it off and get everyone to return to the party, but the energy in the room has shifted. Everyone's focus is on the person on the other side of the door. She walks to the punch bowl, pours herself a cup, and encourages everyone to get back to the party. Instead, a pirate and a mermaid walk to the door, turning the knob even as the girl asks them to stop. They open it, letting the stranger in the sheet inside. The figure glides through the door, moving in a way that seems just a little bit off. The girl is struck with a feeling that she hasn't experienced since she was a little girl, the sense, deep down in her gut, that something could really be a monster. Whatever she does, she can't let the thing in the sheet get close to her. She doesn't know what will happen, but the thought of it turns her stomach with a primal sense of danger. She starts to run, but a girl dressed as a tiger grabs hold of her arm, wrenching her back. The girl struggles to free herself, but a man in a vampire costume grabs her other arm, gripping her so tight his knuckles turn white, and she can feel the flesh bruising. She pleads with her friends, trying to get them to see reason and release her, but they won't budge. The tiger girl apologizes through tears, but won't let go. As the girl thrashes, pulling so hard to free herself that she worries her arm will break, the figure in the sheet inches closer and closer. She shouts at it, demanding to know who it is, what it wants, why it's hiding behind that sheet. But it doesn't say a word, doesn't give a clue. There's no expression to read, only the blank white fabric. When it reaches the girl, her feet fly out from under her, and she collapses to the ground, yanked forward by an unseen force. Something is pulling her under the sheet. She claws at the floor, trying to drag herself away from the force, but she can't. The party guests watch, helpless, as their hostess disappears under the sheet, until the only thing left is her writhing silhouette and her screams. Then, the screams go quiet. Nothing left of the girl but her witch's hat lying on the floor. The figure gathers its sheet around itself and calmly walks out of the party. Those unfortunate guests watch their even more unfortunate friend encounter the creature known as SCP-6096. SCP-6096 is a humanoid entity that spends all of its time hidden beneath a large cotton sheet. A vague sense of its shape can be garnered by observing the entity, but its body is hidden at all times, preventing a complete physical description from being recorded. However, Foundation researchers have determined via a cursory examination that the entity is 1.55 meters tall and that it weighs approximately 48 kilograms. The sheet itself is larger than SCP-6096's body, trailing on the ground behind it by at least a meter whenever the entity moves. All attempts to remove the sheet in order to get a proper look at the thing have been unsuccessful. One of the most unusual properties of SCP-6096 is that it cannot be harmed. I don't mean that it is impervious to damage, but rather that any living being that attempts to engage in a behavior that would harm the entity finds themselves unable to do so. This includes, but is presumably not limited to, actions such as attempting to attack SCP-6096, attempting to order others to attack SCP-6096, attempting to trick others into attacking SCP-6096 without their knowledge, laying a trap for SCP-6096, ordering others to lay a trap for SCP-6096, creating an autonomous device that would harm SCP-6096, attempting to leave SCP-6096 unsupervised and in harm's way, and attempting to remove SCP-6096's sheet. Most of the time, SCP-6096's behavior is described as peaceful and docile. As long as there is no danger present, it allows itself to be led into containment and remains there with seemingly no objections. However, every so often, the entity becomes active and will attempt to leave its location. It does so at a steady pace with single-minded persistence as it pursues one specific target at a time. It is uncertain how the entity chooses a target, but so far, it has always been a seemingly random human being somewhere on Earth. Not only does SCP-6096 know exactly who its target is, but anyone who observes the entity during an active period finds that they too know who it is seeking out. In addition to this anomalous effect, the person will also find themselves compelled to help SCP-6096 reach its intended target. These targets appear to be the only individuals unaffected by SCP-6096's anti-harm properties. A person that the entity has selected will, in fact, be able to harm it. However, none have managed to successfully do so, mainly due to the protective influence of the other humans caught in the creature's anomalous thrall. But what happens when SCP-6096 reaches its target? Research into this has been largely inconclusive, but a few facts are certain. SCP-6096 will pull the person underneath its sheet until they have disappeared from view. If the victim is conscious, they can be heard fighting, struggling, and screaming in unimaginable agony for up to 40 minutes. Then they go silent and are never seen again. Once its chosen victim has disappeared, SCP-6096 becomes docile and largely immobile again, and can be led back to containment. Whatever happens to its targets under that sheet, it is definitely not anything good. SCP-6096 was discovered by the SCP Foundation on September 12, 2018, when police were called to the home of the Mallion family in the town of Durham, New Mexico. Samuel and Amanda Mallion greeted the officers in a state of distress, claiming that a person wearing a sheet had come into their home and somehow caused their 16-year-old son Desmond to disappear. Authorities spotted SCP-6096 inside the home and planned to remove the sheet in order to interrogate and detain the suspect, but found themselves unable to take another step closer to the thing. Terrified by their inexplicable encounter, they submitted an incident report to their supervisor, who passed it up through the chain of command in the regional government until it landed in the hands of the SCP Foundation. Alongside the police report, the Foundation was able to access security camera footage from the Mallion family home. A transcription of the video's contents is included in the official Foundation files. I'll do my best to summarize its events. The home security footage depicts the Mallion family sitting on their living room couch, facing the television. Samuel and Amanda watch a program on TV as Desmond idly scrolls through his phone. Outside, a car can be heard pulling into the driveway. Though the driver's identity has not been confirmed, this is believed to be a local taxi driver named Drake Ellen, dropping SCP-6096 off at the Mallions' door. A moment later, Samuel draws his wife's attention toward a window. At first, the two are surprised but amused, assuming that SCP-6096 is some sort of errant Halloween decoration. However, they become increasingly disturbed as the sheet-covered figure approaches their door and begins to knock, so softly it is nearly inaudible. As Samuel gets up to enter the door, Amanda grabs her son's arm, holding him in an increasingly tight grip and refusing to let him pull away. Unable to stop herself, no matter how upset she becomes, she holds Desmond still as her husband lets SCP-6096 into the house. It glides across the floor toward Desmond, who struggles to break free from his crying mother's grasp. Amanda can be heard reassuring him, saying, "You just stay still, honey. You just close your eyes. It won't hurt if you just close your eyes. I love you." Desmond struggles harder, but finds himself unable to break his mother's hold. He kicks his legs, knocking his phone to the ground as the sheet-covered entity draws closer and closer. He begs his mother to let him go, but she doesn't budge. His father, through tears, says, "Just stay still, son. Just stay still. It won't hurt for long. It can't hurt for long. Stay strong. Stay strong for me." Starting with his feet, the entity begins to cover Desmond with its sheet, pulling him out of sight. Amanda and Samuel watch in wordless, open-mouthed horror,
silent screams stretching their faces into masks of terror and grief. Desmond can be heard screaming, thrashing violently beneath the sheet, though what exactly is happening to him under there cannot be seen. This continues for the next 36 minutes, until Desmond has completely vanished. At this point, SCP-6096 wraps itself in its sheet and sits down on the floor, watching the television without a care in the world. Amanda and Samuel, on the other hand, find themselves able to move on their own again, and must reckon with what they just saw, what they just participated in. Samuel collapses to the ground, curling up in the fetal position and rocking back and forth in shock. Amanda stumbles backward, keeping her eyes locked on SCP-6096, and dials 911 on her cell phone. They stay right there until the police arrive. At this point, the video log cuts out. After the SCP Foundation was notified of the incident at the Malian family home, Foundation officers administered Class A amnestics to Amanda and Samuel, as well as to all responding officers who encountered SCP-6096. It is uncertain how long SCP-6096 was operating before this incident, or where it could have come from. SCP-6096's containment is strictly under the jurisdiction of Mobile Task Force Zeta-29, Blood Brothers. The anomaly is kept in a standard humanoid containment chamber, located on the grounds of Site-19, where it is monitored by on-site personnel via video and audio recording devices. If any changes in its behavior are noted, they are to be promptly logged and reported. Unlike most anomalies at the SCP Foundation, SCP-6096 is permitted to leave its containment area whenever it chooses. Whenever it does choose to leave, SCP-6096 must be escorted to its intended destination by MTF Zeta-29. Task Force members may use whatever method of transportation is most convenient at the time. While this group is escorting the entity, a secondary team will travel to its intended target, dosing them with a high-grade tranquilizer to render them unconscious. Once the entity has disposed of its target, it will be accompanied back to its containment chamber. There are no easy jobs at the SCP Foundation, aside from the lucky few who get to spend their days playing with SCP-999. But staff assigned to the containment, if you can even call it that, of SCP-6096 reports some of the lowest morale levels at the organization. A welcome notice from Charlie Szymanski, commander of Mobile Task Force Zeta-29, Blood Brothers, is included in the official file, presumably for Task Force member eyes only. Nevertheless, I feel it is important that I share the contents of this note with all of you, as they provide a valuable look into the perspective of the members of this unfortunate task force. It reads, "And there you have it. Welcome to Mobile Task Force Zeta-29. No need to worry about professionalism down here. The higher-ups couldn't demote me if they wanted to. Apparently my presence as the head of SCP-6096 containment is beneficial enough to it that me being reassigned would count as harming it. Lucky me. You're probably wondering how we can be shameless enough to say we have this thing under containment. It comes and goes whenever it feels like it, and if it ever decided it didn't want to come back to its containment cell, we have literally no way of forcing it. And yeah, you're probably also thinking that calling that room a containment chamber instead of a hotel room is just as shameful. To that I say, you're absolutely right. There's nothing we can do against SCP-6096. Feel free to self-medicate until you're able to accept that. Don't hold back. You're going to become very familiar with that feeling of gnawing guilt. I know I did, the first time I had to hold the door to a maternity ward open for this thing. The idea of containing SCP-6096 is a bad joke. We all decided a long time ago that the only way out of this nightmare is liquidation, decommissioning, neutralization, whatever you want to call it. But that's no walk in the park either. I've stood in that chamber for hours, gun pointed at 6096's head, screaming at my finger just to tighten slightly. Didn't work. You can't harm SCP-6096, no matter how much you want to. You can't even try to start a Rube Goldberg kind of thing to eventually harm SCP-6096. It's just a fact of the world, maybe a semiohazard or whatever it's called. The way I see it then, there are three main ways out of this nightmare. One, another organization, maybe the GOC, takes a shot at it without realizing what they're dealing with. Maybe they think we're transporting something much more dangerous. Maybe they think we're in over our heads with it, and they take it out with a drone or something, blow the thing to hell while we're transporting it. A bomb would kill it easy, I think. It feels weak. This would only work so long as the GOC thinks they're bombing something else entirely. If they knew it was SCP-6096, they'd just be contained too. 2. An AIC deals with it. I don't know if an artificial intelligence is immune to SCP-6096's effects, but the fact that it won't let me tell one of them about it gives me hope. Maybe one day one of those computers gets a mission, and maybe that mission, by complete coincidence, happens to lead them over to this file. Then they use their superior intelligence to set things up so 6096 runs into an accident out of the blue. 3. A target gets lucky. Maybe 6096 goes after a gun nut, and the poor guy gets a lucky shot in before we can hold him down. This almost happened once, but Lopez took the bullet. Poor guy bled out while we were holding the target down for 6096. Maybe it'll happen again, go better. Maybe. Let's be honest. These scenarios aren't scenarios, they're fantasies. The odds of any of these things happening on their own are tiny, minuscule. The only thing that can really do 6096 in, far as I can see, is sheer coincidence. All we can do is wait and hope. Hope for one of us to make a genuine mistake that gets the right dominoes falling. But I wouldn't hold your breath. After all, we're so good at what we do. Of all the anomalies I have studied, SCP-6096 is one that troubles me more than almost any other. I have lost sleep watching the Malian family security footage again and again, each time shocked by the sight of two tearful parents helping a sheet-covered stranger steal their only son, doing who knows what to him in the process. No matter how hard I try, I cannot discern SCP-6096's motives, its origins, or even what its real face looks like. Perhaps it doesn't have one. Perhaps there's nothing under that sheet. The hardest part is knowing that I will likely never know. That uncertainty is so much worse than any of the horrible truths I have uncovered in my years of studying the anomalies that hide in the shadows of our world. Though I may never uncover the answers to the mystery of SCP-6096, there is one thing I know for certain. I will never be able to relax around Halloween. That walking bedsheet might be someone who ran out of time to plan a proper costume and just grabbed the first thing they could find. Or it could be a faceless horror walking with the relaxed gait of the incomprehensibly powerful on its way to claim another unfortunate soul.
The girl sighs and slumps in her seat, kicking at the back of the bucket seat in front of her. Her mother, sitting in the car's front passenger side seat, doesn't even notice. She's too busy taking photographs out the window and chattering with her husband, who's driving the car. That's all they've been doing all day, and the girl is sick to death of it. Her parents dragged her on this stupid vacation trip, and now she's got to waste her whole summer away from her friends. She stares out the window and watches the pastoral countryside slide past. The quaint little villages and rolling hillsides really excite her parents, but she could not care less. Mom and Dad planned this family vacation across Europe for months, but she would much rather have gone someplace interesting instead. There are only so many boring old castles and stupid cathedrals that you can look at before you just lose your mind. The girl sighs and crosses her arms across her chest in silent resignation. "Guess we're just gonna look at more dumb buildings," she mutters. "Honey, can you stop that? Your father worked really hard to put this trip together, and the least you could do is pretend to have a good time," says her mother, momentarily lowering her camera to berate her ungrateful daughter.
Huh?
It's the first time that her mother has acknowledged her all day. "I think you're really gonna like today's itinerary," says her father, grinning as if he's got a delicious secret that he can't wait to share. "We know it's been hard for you spending your whole summer away from home, so today we're gonna do something just for you." "Uh-huh," says the girl. "Sure, Dad." She rolls her eyes and pulls out a cell phone. At least she can still get internet access out here. Desperate for something to distract her from the monotony of this car trip, she quickly scrolls through her feed and reads all the notes that her friends back home are posting. She frowns. Her classmates are all posting about the latest blockbuster film in the girl's favorite media franchise, Vampire Boyfriend. She grits her teeth. She likes to consider herself a Vampire Boyfriend superfan. She's a well-known poster in the Vampire Boyfriend online community, famous for her fanfiction, as well as her own original character, Vampire Girlfriend. In fact, her writing is somewhat controversial. A lot of Vampire Boyfriend purists have accused her character Vampire Girlfriend of being a Mary Sue, and they object to her stories where a Vampire Boyfriend meets and falls madly in love with her, to the point that he forgets his canon lover from the film series, Vampire Wife. She's annoyed to see that her friends got to see the new Vampire Boyfriend movie on opening night, while she's stuck out here on this stupid family vacation. The movie won't premiere in Europe for another few months, and there's no way she's going to be able to avoid spoilers for that long. Everything about this situation seems tailor-made to irritate her, and the excited giggles of her parents in the front of the car as they exchange knowing glances are only annoying her more. "Trust me, you're gonna love this," says her father again. He peers at an unfolded road map in his lap, mutters something under his breath, and turns the car off the main highway and onto a narrow gravel road. The girl grits her teeth as the car rattles over the uneven ground so hard that it nearly jostles her cell phone from her grasp. She tries to distract herself by typing some notes to herself, plot points for the latest vampire boyfriend fanfiction that she's working on. In her new story, vampire girlfriend is going to be kidnapped by werewolves, leading vampire boyfriend to have an existential crisis as he struggles to find meaning in a world without his beloved. She makes a note that vampire girlfriend should look, dress, and talk just like her. After all, she imagines, wouldn't she be the perfect match for vampire boyfriend? She pauses, a momentary dreamy expression on her face as she imagines how much better a weekend together with vampire boyfriend would be compared to this boring car trip.
This can't be right,
Mumbles her father, scanning the horizon.
but the directions said.
Suddenly he brightens up.
Oh, there it is. Playland.
The girl cranes her neck to see that the car is fast approaching what appears to be a little carnival at the end of the road. She rolls her eyes. Oh, great. Of course her parents would take her here. First, they bore her with endless visits to museums and historical sites, and now, when they want to make it all up to her, they take her to a carnival for babies. She's not a kid anymore, but her parents still think that this sort of goofy nonsense should excite her.
I know you've been bored going to all the historical sites with us, Honey Pumpkin,
says her father as he pulls the car into a parking spot and applies the brake.
That's why I asked the hotel concierge if there was anything good around here for kids. And wouldn't you know it, the next morning, what did I find shoved under our door? 3 free tickets.
He holds up the tickets as if they were a trophy he'd won. The girl's mother nods approvingly. Now that's good service. I hope you left him a big tip. The girl groans. You can't be serious, Dad. A carnival? What, do you expect me to ride on the teacups or something? I'm 15. I'm not a dumb baby anymore. Language, young lady, admonishes her mother as she unbuckles her seatbelt. Your father worked really hard to find this place just for you. The least you could do is show a little gratitude for once.
Oh, you think you're too old now, says her father. But I bet once we see some of these rides, boy, I'll bet you feel just like a kid again.
He inhales deeply. Even inside the car, the unmistakable fair smells of funnel cake and corn dogs are in the air.
You smell that? It smells like fun.
Sure, fun. The girl pockets her cell phone. The family exits the car and walks toward the Playland gate, where they're greeted by a costumed employee. Welcome to Playland, announces the employee in a chipper voice. Your favorite amusement park. When you're at Playland, you'll find that the worries of the day melt away, and it's time for play.
Oh, you speak English,
says the father. He turns to the mother.
See, now that's service.
He hands over the complimentary tickets. The employee takes them with a smile and a flourish, and then ushers the family through the gate. The girl, however, can't stop staring at the gatekeeper. If she didn't know any better, she would think that he was dressed like vampire boyfriend. But that doesn't make any sense. It must just be a coincidence. But once they enter the park, she sees that all the employees are dressed like vampire boyfriend. The guy standing behind the counter of the ring toss booth, the guy manning the balloon station. The uniform for this park looks like the outfit that she imagined vampire boyfriend would be wearing in her first fanfiction story. Wait, says the girl, staring up at the bundle of helium balloons floating above the balloon vendor. Each balloon bears the name Vampire Boyfriend and the fanged bat logo of the film series. So it's not a coincidence at all? This theme park really is themed after her favorite films? Her father notices her change of expression, and he nudges her in the ribs.
Eh? I told you that you like it. This is all about those movies you like so much, huh? Ghost Boyfriend or whatever?
It's Vampire Boyfriend, Dad, she says distantly, but she's too mesmerized by her surroundings to put much feeling into the barb.
How much for a balloon?
Asks her father, pulling open his wallet and quickly thumbing through a stack of local currency. Oh, no charge, says the balloon vendor brightly. He plucks a string from the bundle and hands it over. Everything's free for our valued special ticket holders.
Well, would you listen to that?
Says her father. He replaces his wallet in his back pocket.
Now, this is the kind of carnival that I wish we had back in the States.
The girl awkwardly takes the proffered balloon. She feels silly holding it, but she's more confused about why it's free. The whole point of offering free entry into a carnival is to gouge people with overpriced rides and souvenirs, right? But everywhere she looks, she can't help but notice signs advertising free corn dogs and bumper cars, unlimited rides for $0. How can this carnival make enough money to keep operating if it's not charging for anything? In fact, how can this carnival make enough money to keep operating when it's based around a niche film like Vampire Boyfriend? Are there really that many Vampire Boyfriend fans out here to keep this place in business? Not that there's anyone else around. As she scans her surroundings, she realizes that, while there are plenty of costume employees bustling around the fair, she doesn't see any other fair goers. It's as if this whole carnival was created and maintained solely for her benefit.
Hey, Pumpkin, how about a ride? I bet you'd love to try out some bumper cars, huh? Says her father. How about we go for a race, and you can see if you can beat your old man, huh?
He points to a bumper car ride across the midway. The girl stares. Like all the other rides, it's covered in vampire boyfriend murals. This one depicts a young woman running away from a pack of werewolves, and the young woman looks exactly like the girl. It couldn't be. But there's no other explanation. The young woman in the mural matches exactly the description of the girl's character vampire girlfriend from her fanfiction story, and the image of the werewolves looks like it's an illustration of the scene where vampire girlfriend gets kidnapped. How could this be? Could it be that the artist, obviously a fan of the vampire boyfriend films, is also familiar with her fanfiction? But even if that was the case, it's absurd to think that he would use it as an inspiration for a theme park ride. Who other than her would possibly recognize this scene? Says the girl's mother, walking up behind her and peering at the mural. Why, that girl looks just like you. I know, she does, says the girl quickly. It's almost a relief to know that her mother has also noticed the resemblance. At least it means that she's not imagining things. At the same time, she feels a twinge of guilt. Readers online are always accusing her of using Vampire Girlfriend as a thinly disguised self-insert. Seeing this larger-than-life picture of Vampire Girlfriend makes her think that there might be some merit to the accusation.
Come on, you lot, stop worrying about some old picture and let's have some fun,
says her father. He offers money to the ticket taker parked behind the kiosk, but the man merely shakes his head. Your money is no good here, sir, says the ticket taker. The bumper cars are free for our favored guests today. Their father clambers into the rink and ambles toward a bumper car. Her mother tugs at the girl's arm as if to encourage her to join in, but the girl resists. Come on, what's gotten into you? Says her mother. This place is just weird, says the girl. Like, half the stuff here isn't even from the official vampire boyfriend lore. It's all stuff that I made up for my stories. Her mother rolls her eyes in annoyance. Really, we go to all this trouble to find something that you would like to do, and all you want to do is complain? I'm sorry, ma'am, is there some problem here? The family is startled as another employee walks up to them. He's also dressed like vampire boyfriend, and a wide smile is plastered across his face. You folks look like you're upset about something. You're damn right I'm upset about something, yells the girl. In her rage, she throws her drink at the employee. He barely reacts as the cup explodes against his chest, dousing him with sticky soda. What's going on here? Where did you hear about Vampire Girlfriend? Ma'am, Playland is designed to give every visitor the perfect experience, says the employee blandly. That's not good enough. Tell me what's going on here. The employee's attitude changes on a dime. His bright smile fades, and suddenly his tone turns stern. Ma'am, I'm afraid that you're going to ruin everyone's fun if you keep up this sort of behavior. We like to keep things fun here at Playland. If you want to spoil the fun, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave. Fine, then we'll leave. Oh, come on, young lady, we just got here, snaps her mother. We literally drove all day to get here and you want to leave after just one ride? You don't even like rides.
There's a principal involved here, says her father sternly as he saunters up. Young lady, if that's your attitude, then I think maybe you should go wait in the car, because your mother and I intend to have a good time.
The girl doesn't have a chance to argue. The employee rests his hands heavily on her shoulders and turns her around. Don't worry, folks. We'll escort her back to your car. You can join her as well when you're ready. The girl cannot believe what's happening. The employee politely but firmly steers her toward the exit, and Frog marches her out the gate. He abandons her in the parking lot, tipping his hat and smiling brightly before he disappears back inside the park. Please try to enjoy yourself, ma'am, until your parents are ready to join you. In the meantime, why don't you work on that new fanfiction you've been planning? How do you know about that? Yells the girl. The employee doesn't answer, simply turning and fading back into the crowd. She rushes to the gate, but the gatekeeper stops her. Sorry, ma'am, no re-entry without a ticket. But I have a ticket, she cries. You saw it. My dad gave it to you like half an hour ago. Come on, you can't be serious. She tries to push past him, but the gatekeeper grabs her wrists with surprising strength and holds her. Still smiling, he firmly escorts her back out to her car before releasing her. Please, ma'am, don't make a scene. You're going to disturb our guests. Who's in charge here? I need to talk to the manager. I want my parents back right now. The gatekeeper doesn't even respond. He simply returns to his station. There's nothing that the girl can do now but wait. She sits down in the gravel and leans her back against the side of the car. Minutes turn to hours, and still her parents haven't returned. Eventually, she goes back to yell at the gatekeeper again. Where are my parents? They should have been back hours ago. Sorry, ma'am. I guess your parents are just having too much fun right now. I'm sure you'll see them again soon, though, says the gatekeeper. The girl shivers as she feels a bite in the cool twilight air. She notices that the sun is starting to dip behind the mountains. It'll be dark soon. How much longer could they take? Even if they decided to ride on every ride in the park, surely they would be done by now. What time does the park close? Asks the girl, a note of panic rising in her voice. The gatekeeper blinks serenely. Playland is open 24/7, ma'am. We're always here when you want to play. The girl feels the color drain from her face as she ponders the possibilities. Her father has the car keys, so she can't take the car to go for help. She pulls out her cell phone, but she doesn't know the number she would need to alert any local authorities. And it's not like she speaks the language anyway. Other than the employees here at Playland, she hasn't met a single person in this whole trip who speaks English. She's completely helpless, trapped, and there's nothing that she can do except wait and hope. As the night settles in, she realizes that her wait might have just started. It might not be the happiest place on Earth, but it definitely tries to be. And while the world is full of sketchy amusement parks, most of them just want your money. The amusement park known as SCP-1357, however, genuinely wants you to have a good time. Sometimes it wants you to have a good time, whether you want to or not. SCP-1357 is a theme park with an area of approximately 4 square kilometers, located somewhere in Poland. The park has 4 entrances, at each of the cardinal directions. SCP-1357 is highly selective about who it allows to enter the park, restricting access to parties that meet the following criteria. The group must contain at least 2 adults in a romantic relationship. It must contain at least 1 member who is under the age of 18 and who thinks of the aforementioned romantic couple as their guardians. And every member of the party must possess a free ticket, hereafter referred to as SCP-1357-B. The park does not charge for admission, and the only way to gain access is to have possession of an instance of SCP-1357-B. Once inside, SCP-1357 looks like any other carnival, with thrill rides, amusement arcades, midway games, and concession booths. Highly unusual for a carnival, though, is that SCP-1357 does not accept any money. All rides, food, and souvenirs are free. The layout and theme of the park are different for different visitors and appear to be highly contingent on the desires of the youngest member of any visiting party. Often, the park will appear themed after various popular media properties, such as Batman, Winnie the Pooh, or Barney the Dinosaur. However, visiting parties accompanied by more imaginative kids may encounter substantially weirder things in the park, including talking animals, sentient foodstuffs, temporal displacements, and even extra-dimensional portals. Although the park normally sits empty, when a group meeting entry requirements arrive at the gate, SCP-1357 will spontaneously manifest a full working staff, people designated as SCP-1357-A. Instances of SCP-1357-A appear to be ordinary humans of various ages, ethnicities, sexes, and genders, all clothed in matching uniforms, suggesting that they are employees of the park. Instances of SCP-1357-A are exceptionally friendly and helpful, and are extremely dedicated to making sure that visitors to SCP-1357 have a good time. In fact, there's nothing that they care about more. There is, however, a darker side to SCP-1357, and one incident suggests the frightening lengths to which the park will go to make sure that its younger visitors truly enjoy their stay. As part of an experiment, a Foundation agent visited the park with his own family, each member equipped with audio recording devices that continuously transmitted to Foundation consoles. During his stay, he attempted to interrogate an instance of SCP-1357-A. The instance of SCP-1357-A refused to answer the agent's questions about the purpose or origin of the park, instead lamenting that the agent's attitude was going to spoil the fun for his family. Eventually, instances of SCP-1357-A escorted the agent to an exit and forcibly removed him from the park. When his wife attempted to follow him, the couple's daughter refused to leave. Instances of SCP-1357-A separated the daughter from her family, removing the wife from the park and keeping the daughter inside, leaving the parents with only vague assurances that their daughter would be returned when she was ready to leave the park. Attempts to forcibly recover the daughter proved futile, and even a well-armed rescue team was unable to overcome the seemingly infinite numbers of SCP-1357-A that SCP-1357 manifested to protect itself. Hopes that SCP-1357 might indeed allow the daughter to leave once she became bored with the park attractions also proved to be futile. Audio captured from the daughter's recording device seems to indicate that when she eventually demanded that SCP-1357-A's release her, she was instead placed into some sort of machine that altered or brainwashed her into becoming an SCP-1357-A herself.
Subsequent park visits by Foundation researchers have revealed a new SCP-1357-A that matches the daughter's physical description but does not display any memories of her past life. Interactions with the SCP-1357-A that resembles the missing daughter reveal that, like other instances of SCP-1357-A, her only thoughts are on how to please park visitors and help them enjoy a pleasant visiting experience. In the end, Playland may offer the ultimate amusement park experience for free, but it might still exact a price that's way too high.
The hammer cracked the metal with a thud that caused the old wooden floor beneath him to rattle. Sparks flew, but the metal was refusing to cooperate again. Dripping sweat, he cursed under his breath and wiped his greasy hands on his pants. The place smelt of burnt oil, rust, and desperation, like the result of every other half-finished experiment scattered across the room. The basement had become a dumpster of failure, its floor littered with discarded weapons. The latest one, a mangled piece of junk, lay there with the others, looking just like the rest, a trophy of his mistakes. It was hot, too hot. But then again, there was no air conditioning in the makeshift lab. Not that the heat bothered him. The world outside, the real world, where the Argentine military junta was busy terrorizing guerrilla forces, was no concern of his. He was here. He was safe. Down in his concrete fortress, no one could interrupt him, except maybe his own mind, but that was another story. He had come to Argentina in the years following Germany's defeat. After the Allies liberated it, he fled, using his connections to slip away to Argentina, where there was a place for those like him. The scientist had put the past behind him. At least that's what he told himself. He swore that nothing would stop him from continuing his work, not even the fact that the world had already moved on from his twisted vision of the future. His hands shook as he dropped the hammer. The old wooden bench creaked under the weight of his frustration. For years, he'd tried to force this alien metal to cooperate, thinking it could be perfected. But it was inconsistent. It didn't bend to his will. Not yet. He didn't need this. The war was over, but he still hadn't finished. The defeat of Germany had been a failure, a mistake, and he was here to correct it, to finish what had been started. And what better way to do that than to create a weapon that could never run out of ammunition? The loud clang of the hammer hitting the metal was his only answer, followed by a trail of sparks. One more failed attempt. This wasn't the breakthrough he had been dreaming of. No, this was just another pile of junk that would gather dust. The gun, an MP5K PDW submachine gun, refused to accept the strange alien metal, sputtering out sparks and misfires. But then, something caught his eye. The metal fused. It finally fused. This time he could feel it, a connection. He paused, wiped his brow, and stared at the gun. What were those white things where the bullets should be? He blinked. He stared harder. The chamber was filled with them. They looked like teeth. Jagged, sharp, a real mess. But human teeth. He pulled the trigger. A groan echoed through the room, coming from the weapon itself. Or was it the metal? Maybe it was just the sound of his brain breaking. The teeth fired. He stared at the weapon. Teeth? He mumbled, barely believing it himself. It was a submachine gun, not a dental office. He stared at the weird projectiles, unsure if this was what he wanted. This wasn't what he wanted.
Perfect,
He muttered, the sarcasm thick in his voice.
Sure, teeth. Why not?
The weapon groaned again, like it had just woken up from a long, bad dream. He pulled the trigger again. More teeth. He winced. This was not the ultimate weapon, not what he had been imagining while he'd sat in his basement for years, drenched in sweat and desperation. He stared at the teeth for a moment too long, then tossed the weapon aside like a disgruntled child throwing a toy away. It landed on the growing pile of failures. It didn't matter. It was just another flawed creation, one more mistake to add to the stack. But hey, that's how science worked, right? Fail, fail again, then maybe, just maybe, succeed. Eventually. But as he wiped his hands and stood, there was something eerily familiar about the way the weapon had grown. It sounded alive. Or perhaps it was just the stress getting to him. Either way, he had no time to dwell on it. He needed a break. The world outside was burning. But for now, the only thing he needed to fix was this stupid weapon. Just then, the house shuddered under the force of the first crash. The The door upstairs was smashed in, wood splintering into jagged pieces. Soldiers piled into the small, darkened entryway like a swarm of locusts. They were coming. The scientist had no idea, of course. He was too deep in his self-imposed exile to care about the war raging outside, but they were coming. The Argentinian military, feeling the pressure of guerrilla forces nibbling away at their control, had gotten wind of an arms dealer supplying weapons, and, as luck would have it, they had been pointed in the direction of his little basement lab. An anonymous tip was all it took to set the military in motion. In their minds, they were storming a minor arms dealer's den. They didn't know he was a Nazi scientist, still hiding out in the shadows of a war that had ended decades ago. They didn't know they were about to bust in on a man who was redefining the future of weapons with teeth. The sound of boots thumping on the floorboard echoed through the house. The soldiers closed in fast. The scientist didn't register the intrusion. By the time he heard them, it was already too late. A soldier's voice shouted from above. It was muffled, but it was enough to snap the scientist into reality. He barely had time to scramble for the hidden drawers, frantically trying to shove his latest creation out of sight, hoping it would go unnoticed. His hands were greasy, his palms sweating from the adrenaline surge. He had spent days, weeks, even years on this work, and it was finally coming together, even if in ways he didn't understand. But the soldiers weren't going to care about his failures. They were going to destroy them. The basement door flew open with a violent crash. The scientist barely had time to reach for the nearest tool, a wrench, before he found himself staring up at the barrel of a rifle. A grizzled soldier stood there, framed in the doorway, eyes wide with the confidence that only a man with a weapon could have. The soldier didn't speak. He just gestured for the scientist to move back, motioning with his rifle, as if the scientist was already a defeated man. The military swarmed in, 4, maybe 5 soldiers, each with a weapon at the ready. They began tearing through the basement without hesitation. They rummaged through every shelf, throwing aside books, overturned flasks, and other equipment the scientist had meticulously organized. It wasn't that they cared about his work. It was that they had orders. Their eyes skimmed the basement like a scavenger looking for bones, their rifles swishing through the air with each swing. Old furniture was knocked over, clutter tossed aside, and the occasional broken part of an old weapon. The scientist stood against the wall, sweating, his throat dry as he swallowed. There was no way out. He glanced at his creation scattered on the table. What they were looking for was simple. Anything that could be used against them. Anything that didn't belong in a quiet, isolated home. One soldier lifted a rusted grenade off the table, studied it, and tossed it aside, useless. Another grabbed a gun that had long since stopped firing, shook it, and tossed it away in frustration. They didn't even look at the books on the shelves, the notebooks that had once carried his genius. To them, it was all just junk. But then, a young soldier found it. He was poking around in a corner, trying to stay low and keep his hands busy. He was just a kid, really, eyes wide with the excitement of being a part of something bigger. As he picked through the mess of discarded guns and strange contraptions, his hands brushed against something cool and smooth. A small shiver ran up his spine, and he glanced around quickly, but no one was paying attention. So, he pulled it out. The weapon. The MP5K PDW. It didn't look like much, at least not in comparison to the other firearms scattered around. It was almost elegant, sleek in a way that didn't seem to fit in with the rest of the gear. The soldier stood still for a moment, staring at it, unsure of what exactly he was holding. His mind didn't quite know how to make sense of it. Was it some secret Nazi weapon? A twisted relic of a bygone era, just like the scientist who'd built it? Maybe, but that didn't matter either. He could already hear the conversations back at base. Where did you get that? How much did it cost? It was a rare find. War memorabilia, a piece of history. He slipped it into his pack, hiding it among the other seized items. No one had to know about it. They wouldn't understand. But he would. The young soldier left the room, keeping the weapon hidden under his gear, his face grinning like a kid who'd just snatched something precious from the mess of war. And as he walked out of the basement, his thoughts were already racing ahead, imagining the stories he'd tell about this particular find. But he never got the chance to tell those stories. As the soldiers made their way back to base camp, guerrilla fighters ambushed them. The attack came without warning. Gunfire erupted from all sides, tearing through the jungle like a storm. The trees cracked and splintered under the weight of the bullets, and the screams of his comrades filled the air. The soldier's heart pounded in his chest, the chaos pushing him deeper into the mess. He scrambled for cover, throwing himself behind a thick tree trunk, the bark splintering under the hail of gunfire. He reached for his weapon, but it wasn't there. His eyes darted around, the sound of bullets whizzing past his head, until he saw it, lying on the ground where he dropped it in the scramble. Then, he remembered his keepsake. He pulled the strange weapon from his pack, the weight of it odd in his hands. It wasn't like any weapon he had ever used, but the more he looked at it, the more curious he became. It seemed to hum, almost alive. "Cover me!" his comrade yelled from behind a tree, firing his rifle at an unseen enemy. The soldier nodded, adrenaline pushing him forward, heart racing. He pressed the barrel of the MP5K against the trunk, aiming at the enemy fighters who were scattered in the underbrush ahead. The sound of the jungle was deafening. The screams of combatants, the roar of distant explosions, the high-pitched crack of rifle shots cutting through the humid air. He steadied his breath, sighted in on the figure moving through the trees, and squeezed the trigger. The weapon groaned, a sound that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Then, with a sickening feeling in his gut, he watched teeth shoot out, flying in a wide arc. He blinked. Teeth. They flew like jagged shrapnel, more akin to dental debris than bullets. The soldier watched in horror as the teeth struck the tree ahead of him with a dull clink, leaving only tiny gashes in the bark. He swore under his breath and pulled the trigger again. The teeth hit the ground in front of the gorillas. It wasn't enough. No force, no punch. "What is this?" he muttered to himself, his voice barely audible above the battle. He didn't have time to rethink it. Another gorilla fired at his position, forcing him to duck. The teeth weren't working the way a bullet should, but it didn't matter. He had to keep firing. It was all he had. He squeezed the trigger again and again. Teeth. More teeth. The gorillas, taking advantage of the ineffective fire, began charging forward. They moved in clusters, using the thick vegetation as cover. He needed to hold them off, and fast. "Reload!" someone shouted. The soldier was too slow to reload with regular ammo. There was no time. His heart raced as he pressed the trigger again, each tooth flying with a sickening clatter. Ineffective. Useless. But it worked for now. It kept the gorillas at bay, if only for a moment. The chaos of battle raged on. Explosions rocked the ground around him, sending dust and dirt into the air. He saw his comrade go down, his body crashing to the ground with a sickening thud. Another man fell beside him, his weapon knocked out of reach. "Get up! Get up!" the soldier screamed to his fallen comrades, not even sure if they could hear him. He took a breath, re-aimed, and pulled the trigger again. More teeth. This time, they struck. The gorilla he'd aimed at staggered back, but only from the shock. The teeth weren't lethal. They barely even hurt. The soldier watched as the gorilla raised his weapon, determined to fight back. But it was enough to buy the soldier some time. Just. He crouched lower, glancing at the weapon in his hands, and realized he was out of ammunition. Frantically, he opened the chamber, hoping, praying to find more. He grabbed the pouch of standard ammunition from his belt and tried to reload. The weapon didn't budge. It wouldn't accept the normal bullets. He tried again, slamming the magazine in harder, but the chamber refused to close. He was panicking. He looked back up to the battle. His comrades needed him, and all he had was this ridiculous weapon that shot teeth. The guerrilla forces were closing in. He could see them rushing forward, weapons raised. "Come on!" he yelled, struggling with the weapon. The heat of the battle was making everything feel like a blur. His breath ragged, sweat stinging his eyes, the world around him spinning. Just as he prepared to throw the weapon aside in frustration, he saw something strange. One of the teeth dropped from the chamber, and he froze. It rolled out, just like it had before. He stared at it, confused, realizing something he had missed. The weapon wasn't out of ammunition. It wasn't broken. It was waiting for its own regenerative ammunition. Before he could process this, another shot rang out from the trees, and the world went dark. The battle raged on around his crumpled body. Eventually, the guerrilla forces triumphed. The soldier's weapon, the strange weapon with the teeth, was left behind on the battlefield, unnoticed for just a moment. But one of the guerrilla fighters, eyes wild from the ferocity of the battle, spotted it. He crouched low, his fingers brushing over the cool metal of the weapon. He had seen it before, in the hands of the young soldier. Now, it was his. He picked it up, feeling the strange weight of it in his hands. It was different, nothing like the rifles they used, nothing like the weapons they knew, but it was a weapon nonetheless. and it was valuable. He glanced down at the soldier's dog tag, still hanging from the man's neck, blood staining the metal. Without a second thought, he pulled it free, tucking it into his pouch as a reminder, a trophy, a victory, no matter how small. The weapon was his now, a souvenir from the battle that had been won. The guerrilla fighter moved through the jungle, the weapon slung over his shoulder, feeling its unfamiliar weight as he trekked back to his small, hidden village. He had seen the aftermath of the battle, the destruction and the dead. The victory had come at a cost, but nothing could prepare him for what awaited him when he reached his home. As he stepped through the trees, he saw the smoke rising in the distance. His heart sank. His stomach twisted. The air, thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood, burned his nostrils as he moved closer. When he reached the village, it was gone. His heart skipped a beat as his eyes fell on the bodies lying in the dirt. The military had come for them, just as they always did. They had taken everything: his family, his home, the children who had played in the fields, the elders who had whispered stories of resistance. His mother, his brother, his wife. Gone. Grief, pure and sharp, flooded his chest. He dropped to his knees, the weight of loss crushing him. It was his fault. He had led the attack. He had brought the battle to their doorstep. More soldiers were out there. They would pay for this. With trembling hands, he reached for his trophy weapon still hanging off his shoulder. He gripped the weapon tightly, the cold metal offering him a fleeting sense of control, of power. With anger coursing through him, he aimed the weapon at the undergrowth. With a guttural, agonizing scream, he pulled the trigger. Click. Nothing. The chamber was empty. Confused, he tried to reload it. Why wasn't it working? He twisted, turned, pulled at the magazine, but it refused to budge. In his frustration, he didn't notice the strange sensation at first, but then, as he looked closer, something was changing. The chamber of the weapon was wet, and in the place where the bullets should have been, there were teeth. He stared at the jagged teeth as they formed. It was madness. It was absurd. But it didn't matter anymore. The gravity of the situation hit him. He lowered the weapon, his hands falling to his sides. There was no fight left in him. The world had taken everything. The weapon, the teeth, the pain. It all felt like a cruel joke. And all he could do was stand there, numb, as the groaning weapon in his hands continued to grow its deadly supply of ammunition. There was no reason to stay anymore. The war had taken everything from him. The guerrilla fighter left the village, his heart as empty as the place he had once called home. The weapon was still with him, slung over his back like a cursed prize, a cruel reminder of the violence he had chosen to live by. He made his way out of the jungle, through the streets that had once been alive with the sounds of resistance, and now stood as silent witnesses to the destruction. There was nothing left for him in Argentina, nothing but ghosts. So he left. He packed what little he could, slipping out of the country, away from the conflict that had claimed so much. He headed north, to a place that promised peace, to the United States, a country he had heard of, but never seen. Maybe there, he thought, he could start over. The guerrilla fighter arrived in the United States with little more than the clothes on his back and the weapon still slung over his shoulder. The world was different here, strange and unfamiliar, but for him, it was just another place where he could hide. He wasn't running toward anything. He was running away from the war, from the faces of the dead, from the screams of his family. And maybe, he thought, he could leave the past behind. Maybe this new land would forget him, just as he hoped to forget the horrors he had witnessed. The guerrilla fighter found a small, quiet town tucked away in a forgotten corner of the world. He rented a small room in a dingy apartment complex, barely enough space for him and his thoughts, let alone the memories. He kept to himself, avoided the neighbors, and never spoke. The days bled into each other. He tried to forget the faces, the blood, the heat of the jungle, the stench of death, but it was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. Solitude became his only companion. His trophy weapon, with its teeth, remained by his side, like a sick, twisted reminder of everything that had been lost. He kept it hidden mostly, but it was always there, always waiting. As the years passed, the guerrilla fighter's paranoia deepened. The world, once a place of revolution and war, now felt like a ticking clock. Time was running out. The man became obsessed with the idea of survival. It wasn't enough to just live. He had to be ready for what came next. The doomsday prepper mentality took hold. He stocked up on everything: cans of food, water, bottles of medicine, and weapons. His small room became a fortress of supplies, stacked high with boxes and crates, like a madman preparing for an apocalypse. He hoarded weapons, a mix of everything he could find: old rifles, handguns, knives, tools, anything that could help him survive when the world came crashing down. He believed it would happen one day. The chaos would come back. He had seen it. He had lived it. He had felt it in his bones, and he would be ready. Every day, he would check his stockpiles, tighten security around his barricaded windows, and watch the news. Everything out there seemed to confirm it. The world was falling apart. Riots in the streets, governments on the brink of collapse, the signs were all there. He had no family, no friends, only his supplies, his weapons, and the weapon with the teeth, a relic of a time he couldn't let go of. The years took their toll. His hair grayed, his skin sagged, his body grew frail, yet his mind remained as sharp as ever. But the weight of solitude wore on him. He refused to confront the trauma of his past. He refused to look at the teeth, to remember the faces of his comrades who had fallen, or the family he had lost in the flames of war. He could no longer tell the difference between the nightmares and his waking life. Every corner of his small, isolated existence was consumed by the fear of what would come next. The world outside passed by without him. The neighbors came and went, their voices and laughter filtering through the walls, but he stayed silent. He had no need for human contact. He was preparing for the worst. His heart raced in the middle of the night, even though the world around him slept peacefully. He checked the locks on his windows, the cans of food stacked high, the weapon with the teeth always close by. Time marched on, but for him, it was just one long, endless day. The future was coming, but he couldn't bear to face it. Fear was all that remained. And then, one day, it came. The end. His body, frail and aging, gave out. No one noticed his passing right away. The neighbors went about their lives, oblivious to the man who had kept to himself for so many years. Days passed before anyone bothered to check on him. He was found alone in his room, surrounded by his supplies and weapons, all of it meaningless in the end. And beside him, still in his cold, stiff hand, was the weapon with the teeth, still waiting. His strange, isolated existence had raised no alarms until the ATF and FBI were notified about the vast arsenal found in his home. When the authorities arrived, the scene was as eerie as it was unsettling. Boxes of food stacked high in the corners, weapons piled like a jumbled treasure trove, and papers scattered haphazardly across the floor. The officers worked through the hoard in silence, cataloging everything they could find, marking the weapons with official tags. It wasn't long before one of them came across something that made him stop in his tracks. Tucked between a rusted rifle and a box of ammo clips, he found the MP5K PDW, its strange, jagged chamber staring back at him. The teeth glinted in the dim light, human-like, unnervingly jagged, as though someone had intentionally jammed them into the chamber. The officer felt his gut twist, a sense of unease creeping into his chest. This was no ordinary firearm. What is this thing?
He muttered under his breath, turning the weapon in his hands, unsure whether to be intrigued or horrified. He called over his partner. They examined it together, but neither of them could understand what they were looking at. No one in the department had encountered anything like it. Word got out about the strange weapon soon after, and it didn't take long before the SCP Foundation was alerted. The agents arrived with little fanfare, as they always did, their presence barely noticed amid the ongoing investigation. They moved quickly, their trained eyes scanning their collection for anything that stood out, and when they came across the MP5K PDW with the teeth, they knew they had found something significant. Their training had taught them to spot anomalies like this. The weapon wasn't just unusual, it was anomalous. At first glance, SCP-127 appears to be a standard MP5K PDW submachine gun, which would be nothing out of the ordinary. However, upon further analysis, it has been revealed that aside from its steel and polymer exterior, the entirety of the firearm is organic and alive. This living nature is not immediately obvious, but its biological components are present in every functional part of the weapon. One of the most striking aspects of SCP-127 is its ammunition, which initially appeared to be human-like teeth.
DNA testing of these bullets revealed that they do not match any known species on Earth. They are something entirely unique, bizarre in their shape, composition, and origins. SCP-127 features two distinct firing modes, semi-automatic and fully automatic, with an audible groan when switching between the two modes. The weapon's magazine typically holds 60 shots, and once depleted, it takes approximately 3 to 5 days for the ammunition to fully regenerate. Attempts to remove the magazine have been unsuccessful, as it appears to be permanently integrated into the weapon. While SCP-127 does not appear to have any reproductive organs, as determined by scans, it does require water, calcium, and protein to remain functional and sustain its biological components. It is unclear how or why these materials are necessary, but they seem essential for its continued operation. While it poses no more immediate danger than any regular firearm, its unusual properties require specific containment measures. It is to be stored in Weapons Locker 7C when not in use, and kept suspended in a solution rich in calcium and protein to sustain its organic components. Only the research team assigned to SCP-127 is authorized to access it, and all interactions with the anomaly must be carefully monitored.
The sharp trill of a woodpecker echoed through the forest. The group of birdwatchers froze, eyes instantly scanning the treetops. "There!" one of them whispered, pointing at a flash of red feathers among the leaves.
"Just a cardinal," the guide said,
His voice calm and steady.
"They're common here. Let's keep going. There's a nesting site of robins up ahead."
The group followed him along the trail, stepping carefully over roots and fallen branches. A pale blue cluster of eggs nestled in a nearby branch soon caught their attention. Quiet murmurs of admiration rippled through the group as they gazed upon the fragile sight. But the guide's focus had shifted. His eyes were locked on a vine curling tightly around an oak tree. It didn't look like anything native. Its edges were tinged with deep purple, and tiny, green thorns glinted faintly in the sunlight.
"Stay here,"
he said, lowering his binoculars. His tone was a mix of curiosity and unease. The guide stepped closer, his boots crunching softly on the forest floor. Up close, the vine seemed even stranger. Its leaves were glossy, catching the sunlight in an almost unnatural way. They moved slightly. It was a subtle, deliberate motion. Something wasn't right.
"What is that?"
Someone called out, breaking away from the rest of the group.
"Not sure,"
the guide replied, crouching down for a closer look. His fingers hovered over the vine, hesitating.
"Doesn't look familiar. Might be invasive."
He leaned in, careful not to touch it. The vine shifted slightly, its leaves trembling, even though the air was still. The guide hesitated. The movement wasn't natural.
"Strange,"
he murmured, stepping back. The forest had gone quiet, the birdsong fading into silence. His hand hovered just above the vine. Its glossy leaves rippled faintly, almost as if aware of his presence. He frowned, shaking his head to push away the unsettling thought.
"Let me just..."
he began, reaching out cautiously. The vine exploded into motion, a blur of green that struck before anyone could react. It lashed out, twisting like a whip, and coiled around his arm with terrifying precision. Gasps come up from the group as the plant tightened its grip, its thorns sinking into the guide's skin. Blood welled up, dark red against the vine's purple leaves.
"What the..."
the guide shouted, yanking his arm back. The vine only tightened, digging deeper.
"Help him!"
Someone screamed, panic in their voice. The group were caught between disbelief and fear. The guide thrashed, clawing at the vine with his free hand, but the plant moved with purpose, shifting and tightening with every attempt to break free.
"Get it off!"
he yelled, his voice cracking as the pain grew unbearable. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the forest floor. The group stepped closer but stopped, their fear rooting them in place. His body convulsed violently, cries turning to guttural gasps as his muscles seized.
"What's happening to him?"
a woman whispered, clutching her binoculars like they might protect her. The guide's face twisted in agony, his eyes wide and glassy.
"It burns!"
he choked out, his voice raw.
"It's inside!"
Thorns dug deeper, drawing fresh blood that dripped onto the soil in thick, dark streams. The guide's body jerked again, the burning spreading as though fire coursed through his veins. A younger birdwatcher took a step forward, gripping a branch as a makeshift tool.
"Maybe we can..."
The vine lashed out before they could finish, a tendril snapping toward them with violent force. They stumbled back with a sharp scream, dropping the branch as they narrowly avoided its grasp.
Stay back!
Another voice warned, pulling them further away. The guide's convulsions began to slow, his movements reduced to faint, agonized twitches. The vine loosened its grip slightly, almost as if satisfied with its work. His ragged breaths filled the silence as the group huddled together in terror. The forest seemed to darken, the once bright morning light fractured by shadows. The air grew heavy, the chirps and rustles of wildlife replaced by an oppressive quiet. The guide trembled on the ground, his breath shallow and uneven. The vine writhed around his arm, its movements erratic yet deliberate. Every attempt to help had only made it worse. No one dared move now. Then, with a guttural yell of desperation, the guide fumbled for his pocket. His shaking fingers closed around a small knife. The blade flicked open with a sharp click, glinting in the sunlight.
Hold still!
Someone called out, their voice trembling. The guide didn't need the advice. There was no time for precision. Gritting his teeth, he brought the blade down on the vine, sawing at its base with furious strokes. The plant seemed to sense the danger. Its tendrils convulsed, tightening their grip as if in protest. The thorn sank deeper, tearing his skin and drawing fresh streams of blood. He let out a strangled cry, pushing harder. With a final desperate stroke, the vine snapped. A piece of it remained attached to his arm, its grip loosening but still embedded in his flesh. The severed length thrashed briefly on the ground before retreating back toward the tree like a wounded predator. The guide stumbled back, clutching his arm. His face was pale, beads of sweat dripping from his brow. His legs wobbled beneath him, barely holding him upright.
Let's get out of here,
he whispered, his voice hoarse. The group sprang into action. Two of them rushed to his side, draping his arms over their shoulders to support him. The others circled protectively around them, their eyes darting to every shadow in the forest. They moved as quickly as they could, each step feeling like an eternity. Their breaths came in short, panicked bursts as they hurried down the trail, glancing back over their shoulders. Behind them, the vine swayed gently, its leaves shimmering as though nothing had happened. They reached the trailhead just as dusk began to settle over the forest. The guide dropped onto a fallen log, struggling to catch his breath. One of the group members pulled out a first aid kit, their hands trembling as they worked to wrap his arm. The piece of vine embedded in his skin oozed a dark, sticky sap that seemed anything but natural.
Are you okay?
Someone asked, their voice tight with urgency. The guide shook his head, his face pale and haunted.
That thing,
he muttered, his eyes flicking nervously back toward the forest.
I've never seen anything like it.
The group exchanged uneasy glances. One of them pulled out their phone and began scrolling through the photos they had taken earlier. The images of the vine were sharp, its thorns gleaming in the sunlight.
You need to tell someone,
another said, holding the phone out to the guide. The local authorities were less than impressed. The small office smelled of stale coffee and damp paper. The guide sat stiffly across from a disinterested officer, his arm heavily bandaged and his face tight with pain.
So you're saying a plant attacked you?
The officer asked, his tone filled with skepticism.
You sure it wasn't just poison ivy? That stuff can make people itch like crazy. It wasn't poison ivy,
the guide snapped, his exhaustion giving his voice an edge. He placed the photos and his scrawled notes on the desk, his hand shaking slightly.
Look, this isn't normal. You won't find this in any field guide.
The officer picked up the photos, his expression unreadable as he studied them.
Looks like some overgrown kudzu to me,
he said with a shrug, sliding them back across the desk.
Maybe you brushed up against it too hard.
The guide's frustration bubbled over.
You're not listening. It moved, it wrapped around me like a snake. It's alive!
The officer sighed, leaning back in his chair.
Look, I'll file a report, okay? But there's not much we can do about an aggressive plant. Just stay away from that area.
The guide stormed out, his jaw tight and his hands balled into fists. The officer's dismissive words stung, but he refused to let them be the end of it. That night, he gathered his notes, the photographs, and every detail he could remember. He sent the information to a network of environmental organizations, determined to find someone who would take him seriously. Unbeknownst to the guide, his evidence reached the hands of people far more willing to act. Deep within the SCP Foundation, a file was opened.
Unusual predatory behavior, vines with anomalous mobility, possible biohazard. An agent read aloud, their tone brisk. Send a team. Their superior replied without hesitation. If even half of this is true, it's worth containment. And just like that, the Foundation's attention turned to the quiet forest, its secret no longer hidden. Darkness had fallen over the forest. The once inviting paths were now cloaked in shadows. The Foundation vehicles rolled to a halt just beyond the trailhead, their engines settling into an ominous, low growl before cutting out completely. The agents stepped out one by one, their movements swift and efficient. Dressed in tactical gear, their faces were concealed behind reflective visors, their presence unnerving in the stillness. We'll retrace the path described in the report, the lead agent said, unfolding a map and gesturing to the trail ahead. Stay sharp. We treat this like any other anomaly until proven otherwise. The team moved in formation, their boots crunching softly on the forest floor. Floodlights mounted to their gear cast sharp beams of light into the surrounding darkness. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig set nerves on edge, but they pressed forward, their discipline unshaken. Eyes on the target, came a whisper from the rear of the team. Ahead, the vine came into view. It was unmistakably larger than the photos had shown. The leaves, tinged with deep purple, shimmered faintly under the pale moonlight. The green thorns glinted menacingly, sharper than the initial report suggested. Coiled tightly around the tree, the vine's tendrils stretched outward, almost as if searching for something. Or someone. The lead agent raised a hand, signaling the team to halt. Thermal scan, they ordered, their tone steady despite the weight of the moment. The team prepared, their equipment whirring faintly in the silence, as the forest seemed to watch. One of the agents stepped forward, wielding a handheld device. The screen flickered to life, displaying a map of heat signatures. A faint glow pulsed from the vine's core, growing brighter with each passing second. It's reacting to us, the agent murmured, lowering the scanner. The vine shifted slightly, its tendrils stretching toward the nearest source of heat. The team deployed a robotic arm, its mechanical joints clicking softly as it extended toward the vine. At the end of the arm, a set of shears gleamed under the floodlights, ready to cut. The vine responded instantly. A tendril lashed out, striking the arm with enough force to send it jerking backward. The operator tightened their grip on the controls, steadying the machine and maneuvering it away from another attack. Defensive behavior, the lead agent noted, their voice calm despite the rising tension. Log its movements. The robotic arm adjusted its approach, swinging wide before darting in. The shears snapped shut, slicing off a small section of the vine. The severed piece writhed violently. It was quickly secured in a containment tube, the lid sealing with a sharp hiss. The main vine grew more aggressive. Tendrils shot out, reaching toward the team with deliberate precision. The agents stepped back, moving cautiously, but keeping their lights trained on the advancing plant. It's targeting warm bodies, one agent said, watching the tendrils stretch toward them. Another glanced at the thermal scanner. The heat signature spikes every time it moves. It's hunting. The lead agent raised a hand. Fall back. Keep your distance. The team retreated, their movements careful as the vine continued its relentless pursuit. Its tendrils stretched further, nearly brushing the boot of the outermost agent before recoiling. Once they reached a safe distance, the lead agent activated their comm. Sample secured, behavior documented, returning to base. The forest remained eerily silent as the team disappeared into the shadows, the vine's tendrils twitching, as if it were already planning its next move. The agents exchanged wary glances, their steps quickening as they left the vine behind. The forest seemed darker now, every shadow a potential threat. Their focus was broken by a rustling in the underbrush. A raccoon emerged, its small eyes glinting in the beams of their lights. It sniffed the air, drawn toward the strange, sweet scent emanating from the vine. Hold position, the lead agent whispered, raising a hand to stop the team. The raccoon scurried closer, its curiosity leading it straight to the vine. It stood on its hind legs, pawing tentatively at the purple-tinged leaves. Should we intervene? One agent asked quietly, their voice tight with unease. Before anyone could respond, the vine reacted. A tendril shot out with terrifying speed, coiling around the raccoon's midsection. The animal let out a sharp cry, clawing at the vine as it tightened. More tendrils followed, wrapping around its limbs and neck. The thorns pierced through fur and flesh, eliciting a final, pitiful shriek. The agents watched in horrified silence as the raccoon's struggles grew weaker. The vine pulsed as it siphoned the animal's fluids. Within moments, the raccoon's body collapsed inward, its form reduced to a shriveled husk.
Unbelievable.
An agent muttered under their breath, their voice barely audible. The lead agent's expression hardened. We've seen enough. This thing isn't just an anomaly. It's a predator. Containment is critical. A new urgency gripped the team as they returned to their staging area. The severed piece of the vine writhed sluggishly within its containment tube. Bring the reinforced container, the lead agent ordered. An agent wheeled over a stainless steel case, its polished surface reflecting the harsh lights. Inside, layers of non-reactive material lined the container, designed to prevent any breach. Stainless steel had been chosen specifically because the plant couldn't penetrate metal.
Careful,
one agent murmured as the vine was transferred into the container. They worked methodically, ensuring no part of the specimen was left exposed. The lid closed with a satisfying click, the airtight seals engaging with a hiss. The team double-checked every seal, then checked them again.
Container is secure,
the handler confirmed, stepping back cautiously. The lead agent nodded.
Good. Let's make sure we leave nothing behind.
The group scoured the area, scanning for any fragments or spores that might have escaped during the transfer. Tools were sterilized, disposable gear sealed in hazardous materials bags, and every piece of equipment meticulously cleaned.
All clear,
another agent reported after completing the sweep. The team loaded the sealed container into their vehicle, each member moving with heightened caution. They all knew what was at stake. The vine wasn't just an anomaly to study, it was a predator waiting to spread. Failure wasn't an option. The arrival at the Foundation site should have been routine. The transport team moved with precision, unloading the reinforced container into the sterile transfer zone. Bright artificial lights illuminated the laboratory. Nearby, a hydroponic growth chamber stood ready, its glass walls bristling with sensors and automated irrigation systems. A small group of researchers and technicians gathered around, their attention fixed on the container. The air buzzed with quiet anticipation, an undercurrent of excitement barely masking the tension. Careful with the transfer, the lead scientist instructed, their eyes glued to the tablet in their hands. Their tone was firm, carrying the weight of prior warnings. This specimen has already demonstrated its lethality. Let's not add another casualty tonight. The container hissed softly, a faint exhalation, as its seals disengaged with a sharp click. The sound echoed in the sterile chamber, amplifying the weight of the moment. Two technicians moved forward, methodically guiding robotic arms toward the container's edge. Every movement was measured, deliberate. Then came a pause. A junior researcher edged closer, their curiosity overriding caution. They leaned in, their gloved hand moving toward the vine, seeking a better view.
What are you doing?
A senior colleague snapped, their voice sharp with alarm. It was too late. The vine exploded from the container, its tendrils moving with impossible speed. They lashed out, coiling around the researcher's arm in an instant. The force sent them staggering backward, a strangled cry escaping their lips.
Get back!
The lead scientist shouted, slamming the emergency alarm. Red lights flared, bathing the room in an ominous glow, and a shrill klaxon pierced the air. The researcher's body stiffened as the vine tightened its grip. Tendrils snaked around their torso and neck, pulling them to the floor. Their panicked gasps filled the room as their colleagues scrambled to intervene.
Cut it loose!
A technician yelled, grabbing a pair of long-handled shears, but the vine was faster. Its thorns sank deep, the pulsing rhythm of the tendrils intensifying. The researchers' struggles faltered, then ceased entirely. Their body began to collapse inward, skin and muscle withering as though drained of life. Within moments, they were a husk, hollow, lifeless.
Pull back!
The lead scientist barked, their voice cutting through the chaos. The team retreated, their faces pale as the vine retracted into its container with unnerving calm. Its movements were slow now, deliberate, almost satisfied. The breach prompted immediate action. The laboratory was sealed, the remains of the researcher incinerated, and the containment protocols underwent an urgent overhaul. The surviving specimen was relocated to a new containment unit, a custom-designed stainless steel planter housed within a hydroponic chamber. The planter's non-porous material ensured that the vine's roots could not extend beyond its confines. Automated systems managed its environment, providing water, nutrients, and controlled lighting without human intervention. The chamber itself was fitted with emergency failsafes. Retractable circular blades, sharp enough to sever the toughest organic material, were installed around the planter. These could be deployed instantly at the first sign of anomalous behavior. The walls of the chamber were reinforced, and observation windows were replaced with high-definition cameras to eliminate the need for direct human interaction. From this point forward, the lead scientist announced during the debriefing, all contact with this specimen will be conducted using remotely operated robotics. No personnel will enter the containment room under any circumstances. This anomaly, now formally designated as SCP-307, required stringent measures. The new protocols were unyielding. Any signs of anomalous activity would trigger an automated lockdown, complete with lethal countermeasures to neutralize the threat. Inside the chamber, SCP-307 appeared dormant. Its tendrils curled loosely within the stainless steel planter, swaying faintly as the automated irrigation system activated. But those who monitored the camera feeds noticed something unsettling. The plant seemed to stir, subtly and almost imperceptibly, whenever a warm body moved in the observation room beyond. For now, the containment held. But those familiar with SCP-307's behavior knew one chilling truth. It was waiting. Bright floodlights illuminated the chamber as researchers prepared for the next phase of testing. Beyond the reinforced glass, a robotic arm extended toward the planter, carrying a small cage. Inside, a white lab mouse pressed against the bars, its whiskers twitching in nervous anticipation. "Releasing test subject," came the announcement over the intercom. The cage door slid open, and the mouse scurried out onto the chamber floor. For a moment, nothing happened. SCP-307's tendrils remained motionless as the mouse sniffed the air, hesitating as it neared the planter. Then, the vine struck. With blinding speed, a tendril snapped forward, wrapping tightly around the mouse's midsection. The animal let out a high-pitched squeak, its body contorting in vain against the plant's relentless grip. More tendrils followed, coiling around its limbs and head with a precision that was as efficient as it was horrifying. "Predation time, 6 seconds," the researcher noted, their voice clinical, masking the tension in the room. "No external injuries observed beyond thorn penetration." As quickly as it had struck, the vine released its prey. The mouse's withered remains crumpled to the floor, its body drained of fluids. The tendrils retracted, curling back into a poised, waiting position, as though the attack had never occurred. Over the following weeks, SCP-307 endured rigorous environmental testing. Researchers experimented with extreme temperatures, humidity levels, and varying light conditions, hoping to discover a weakness. But the results were the same every time. SCP-307 thrived. "Extreme cold, high heat, desiccation, it's unfazed," a researcher summarized during a briefing, their tone heavy with unease. "Its growth doesn't slow no matter the conditions. It's practically unkillable." Detailed analysis of SCP-307's thorns and roots revealed more unsettling facts. The thorns contained a powerful compound capable of paralyzing prey within seconds. Meanwhile, the roots displayed an extraordinary cellular structure, allowing them to penetrate nearly any material, organic or inorganic. Stainless steel was one of the few exceptions, justifying its continued use in containment. But the most alarming revelations came during behavioral experiments. In one test, multiple prey animals were introduced into the chamber simultaneously. SCP-307 reacted immediately. Its tendrils moved with eerie precision, targeting vital areas, throats, limbs, torsos, immobilizing each animal in seconds. The plant's movements were efficient and deliberate, conserving energy while ensuring maximum effectiveness. "It's not just reacting," a researcher noted in a debriefing. "It's calculating, prioritizing. We've started calling it Spider Ivy for a reason." Another experiment deepened the sense of dread. When robotic arms were introduced into the chamber, SCP-307 adapted. Its tendrils maneuvered with flanking tactics, cornering the mechanical devices in a way that suggested deliberate strategy. The plant wasn't simply hunting. It was learning. The nickname Spider Ivy quickly evolved into a cautionary label. The danger became undeniable during a routine test involving a D-Class subject. Outfitted in a reinforced suit, the subject was instructed to approach SCP-307 with a thermal scanner. As soon as they entered the chamber, the plant's tendrils twitched, reacting to the heat signature. "Maintain a 2-meter distance," the lead researcher warned over the intercom. But SCP-307 had other plans. A tendril shot out far beyond its usual range, coiling around the D-Class's arm. The suit, designed for protection, offered little resistance. Thorns pierced through the material, delivering their paralyzing venom. The subject screamed, their body jerking as the plant tightened its hold. "Deploy blades!" the lead researcher barked. The failsafe system activated immediately. Circular blades descended, slicing through the tendrils with mechanical precision. Severed sections of the vine thrashed wildly, releasing the D-Class, who crumpled to the floor, gasping for breath. But the crisis wasn't over. The severed pieces of SCP-307 began growing autonomously, tendrils snaking across the chamber floor and reaching for the walls. Their rapid expansion was unlike anything the team had observed before. "Seal the room!" came the urgent command. Doors slammed shut as the containment team scrambled to regain control. The plant's new growth shriveled under the assault, curling inward as its predatory expansion was halted. By the time the room was officially declared safe, the D-Class subject lay motionless on the floor, their body grotesquely altered. An autopsy later revealed the horrifying extent of SCP-307's invasion. A small breach near the faceplate of the insulating suit had allowed a tendril, labeled Vine B, to penetrate the subject's body. Inside, the results mirrored those of previous animal tests. The internal organs were gone, replaced by an intricate network of roots that extended throughout the skeletal structure. At the core of this network, a seed was discovered lodged within the subject's skull. Shoots had already begun to sprout toward the eye sockets, the beginnings of another growth cycle. The remains of the D-Class subject were promptly incinerated, the grim findings reinforcing the plant's terrifying adaptability and the deadly consequences of any containment failure. SCP-307 has since been formally classified as Keter. This anomaly was a stark reminder that even nature's simplest creations could become its most terrifying.
It seemed almost like a normal day for the cashier until he ran into the spaceman. And that's exactly what he is, a bizarre stranger wandering into the convenience store dressed like he's doing maintenance work on the side of the ISS. Oh God, the cashier thinks. This has got to be some internet douchebag filming a TikTok stunt. Not today. But he couldn't be more wrong. The stranger in the spacesuit approaches the counter in a resolute stride, with none of the lingering shame that you'd expect some moron in a dumb costume would have. Oh, here it comes. He's just waiting for the punchline.
"Salutations, my good man,"
the stranger in the suit says.
"I know that you're performing important administrative work for the running of this planet here, but I'm afraid I'm in dire need of assistance, especially from one of your impressive station.
Is this guy for real?
If you agree to help me battle the moon monsters."
Sure. The cashier cuts him off mid-speech. Whatever, I'll help you fight the stupid moon monsters if it gets you out of here.
"Huzzah! A man of quality,"
The spaceman says.
"We leave at once."
Before the cashier can get out another word, the spaceman lunges forward, grabbing the cashier in his arms. The thrusters in his jetpack activate in an impressive burst of flame. The unfortunate man is dragged through the ceiling of the convenience store as the spaceman blasts off. The cashier will never be seen again. The same cannot be said of the spaceman who took him. Well, that was all rather strange, wasn't it? Not when you're dealing with SCP-1233, codenamed the Lunatic. Here's an amusing fact for any fellow etymology enthusiasts in the audience. The word lunatic is derived from the Latin term lunaticus, meaning of the moon or moonstruck. It comes from an archaic and incorrect belief that insanity is somehow wired to the moon. Except when you're dealing with this particular interstellar oddity. At face value, you'd be forgiven for thinking this is just some oddball cosplayer dressed in an unusually high-quality NASA spacesuit, complete with an opaque visor and a jetpack, wandering through the streets. You might think it's part of some social media stunt or viral marketing campaign. But you'd be dead wrong there.
This is one of the most powerful and durable humanoid anomalies on the Foundation's roster, and to this day, it isn't truly contained in the traditional sense. All the Foundation can do is pick up after it. You see, terminating the lunatic wouldn't be a feasible course of action either. Its suit has been shown to be impervious to both small arms fire and armor-penetrating anti-tank munitions. Its capacity to withstand high temperatures is also astounding. Both white phosphorus bullets and submersion in magma also seem to have no lasting effect on the creature. The suit remains unblemished, and the lunatic within doesn't appear to show any signs of pain, discomfort, or damage. And if you were hoping that slightly more subtle methods of finding what exactly is going on in the suit would be more fruitful, I'm afraid I'm going to need to disappoint you there too. Thus far, ultrasonic, radio, microwave, and X-ray emitters have all failed to see through the fabric of the suit. By this point, you've likely also put together that the lunatic's jetpack isn't just for show either. It's a fully functional, anomalously powerful propulsion system that allows it to fly upwards at a rate of 40,500 kilometers per hour, which is slightly higher than the exit velocity of Earth's atmosphere. Going at this speed, by the way, would be instantly fatal for any human being, supporting the theory that whatever's under that suit is not, in fact, human. If flying and super speed wasn't enough, the lunatic also has utterly obscene super strength, capable of repeatedly lifting objects weighing up to 65,000 kilograms without showing any signs of fatigue. It completely defies the laws of both biology and physics. Because of the entity's resistance to being captured and analyzed, whether these incredible powers are inherent to it or provided by the suit is still unknown. What we do know are some details of the lunatic's motives, personality, and inner nature. His voice comes out of a loudspeaker on the suit, described as sounding like a, quote, grandiloquent and declamatory male voice. This fits its larger-than-life personality, both extremely dramatic and oddly cordial in conversation, even if those conversations seem like complete nonsense to the entity's unwitting conversation partner. It seems to also be fluent in a huge number of languages, modifying its speech to fit any locale where it happens to land. Emphasis on land here. The lunatic simply plummets from an unknown height at extreme speeds, comparable to the velocity of a small meteor, the speed of its descent, causing it to glow white hot. From a distance, it'd be easy enough to confuse it for a shooting star, and not an unknown being on a mission of grave importance. The lunatic will crash into the ground a safe distance from a developed area, typically a small town with a population of around 30,000 people. The sheer force of his landing will cause a localized seismic event, along with a large impact crater, which will later be written off as the result of a comet by everyone except the kind of UFO cranks that even the Foundation doesn't bother dosing with amnestics. After landing, the lunatic will climb out of the crater and begin bumbling his way towards the nearest developed area, having what I can only, in all my scientific professional detachment, describe as wacky misadventures. It's known to spend a great deal of time studying inanimate objects like vehicles, farm equipment, and sometimes even plants. Sometimes it'll just stand still and display no sound or movement whatsoever during these periods, perhaps thinking or taking in the wonders of the world around him, mostly corn if he landed in a field. The lunatic has been shown to have an extremely curious, if misguided, nature. Foundation field agents have spotted him chasing after insects like grasshoppers and butterflies, as well as attempting to converse with and interview various non-verbal animals, such as livestock and birds. It also takes a great deal of interest in fruit and other local foodstuffs, which it will simply smush into its opaque visor as though trying to eat them, when in reality it's just smearing it messily across the glass. It seems satisfied either way. It also has a tendency to march directly into bodies of water before popping up on the other side. This confirms that either the spacesuit has an internal oxygen intake like a non-anomalous spacesuit, or that the creature inside either doesn't need to breathe or perhaps even has gills. With an anomaly like this, there's really no way to tell. However, seeing as it's simply not practical for the Foundation to stop the lunatic from reaching a populated area, given that it's fast, invincible, and impossibly strong, it will eventually reach a populated area while Foundation personnel pour into that area in order to manipulate the situation to their advantage. The lunatic will begin attempting to verbally interface with local people, often causing feelings of confusion, annoyance,
and amusement. We can't think of any better example of a typical interaction with SCP-1233 than one that occurred between it and the proprietor of a cookie store named Bob Parsons in Saratoga Springs, New York, USA, back in 2009. I'll try my best here to recreate it exactly as it occurred. The lunatic entered the store, Sam's Sweets, early in the morning, while Bob, a large bearded man, stood behind the counter. Bob was confused by the appearance of the anomaly, who approached him, saluted, and said the following.
Greetings, little girl. I am Moon Champion, champion of the moon, defender of space justice, and destroyer of evil. I have come once again to your charming world to learn more of your strange culture and to seek aid for my people in their ongoing war against the moon monsters. You appear to possess a vast wealth of the fabled nutrients and moisture for which this world is known throughout the galaxy. Are you the president of this planet?
This brought Bob to his knees. With laughter, he assumed this was some piece of avant-garde performance art and remained in a state of uproarious laughter for a full minute while the lunatic politely waited for him to stop. After he was done, Bob offered the lunatic a free cookie as a show of his thanks for such a hilarious prank. The lunatic, trying to be polite, shoved the cookie against his mask, crumbling it all over the floor, an act which provided Bob with further amusement. Since it broke up another drab day running a cookie bakery, he decided to indulge this strange visitor. Bob asked about the moon monster and tried to put together the narrative that the lunatic is looking for new volunteers in an Earthling army to help the moon people fight off the moon monsters. All this seemed to delight the lunatic, who had no concept of irony, saying,
Your understanding of the situation is flawless, my lord. Yes, the dreaded moon monsters have plagued and besieged my people for countless millennia. They are very terrible. Merely attempting to describe them to you would cause your human organs to shrivel in horror. And it is my sacred duty as Moon Champion to meet these nightmarish beasts in combat and lead the moon people in the defense of their imperiled homeland, the majestic and magnificent Moon Kingdom.
Bob was a little shocked at just how committed to the bit this strange customer seemed to be. Was this guy for real? Bob, at least trying to keep things light, asked the lunatic whether he was the king of the moon people. He responded with an emphatic shake of his masked head.
No, I am not one of the moon people. I am Moon Champion. I will continue to serve the moon people and wage glorious war against their enemies until my debt to the Moon King is repaid. But the Moon Kingdom is a land of peace and enlightenment, the moon people having abandoned the pettiness of violence and bloodshed eons ago. They are ill-prepared for the sudden advent of such a formidable foe, and the conflict goes poorly despite the valiant efforts of me, Moon Champion. And so I have come once more to Earth, our closest neighbor, to seek whatever assistance lies within your damp, meaty hearts.
This was all getting a little too weird for Bob now. Some part of him was getting a trifle worried that the Moon Champion really wasn't kidding about dragging him off to space to fight a moon war against equally bizarre moon monsters. Thankfully, on his nights off, Bob was a hobbyist stand-up comedian who frequented various improv comedy clubs in New York City to hone his craft. It was this skill that allowed him to skillfully no-but the lunatic and save his life in the process. Thinking fast, he said, So as you can see, Moon Dude, as president, I have responsibilities. This supply depot here is the only source of food for my people, and I've got to, stay here. Otherwise, there will be a famine. You know how it is. But I've ordered the citizens to lend a helping hand to anyone who asks, and look, right outside, there's some. This was the correct answer, and successfully redirected the attention of the lunatic.
Yes, of course. You have been most voluptuous, my liege. Farewell, glorious and corpulent president. May you and your people remain moist and rubbery. Moon Champion blasts off on wings of justice.
The lunatic saluted Bob again and left the store, before walking directly through a concrete wall as though it was made of rice paper, and then flying off. As you may have gathered by now, the behaviors that the lunatic engages in while on Earth do appear, well, loony. Some of the stranger activities that the Foundation have documented the lunatic engaging in include, but are by no means limited to, wandering directly into traffic, which has caused fatalities, as when a car collides with a lunatic at high speeds, the car will inevitably lose that collision, along with any cars behind it.
This is how the majority of SCP-1233 fatalities occur, given that the lunatic has never shown any active desire to purposefully harm human beings. It will sometimes take interest in objects behind store windows. In the event of this, they'll reach through the glass directly and pick it up, smashing the glass in the process. A relatively easy fix, all things considered, but it attracts attention for bystanders and generally upsets shopkeepers in the process. It has also, on occasion, picked fights with fire hydrants and then destroyed them with extremely powerful punches. Whether this hints at the appearance of the moon monsters being similar to Earth fire hydrants is an open question, given the seemingly automatic aggression that just seeing them provokes. Researchers on the case will continue to explore this as a possibility. The lunatic has also shown a strange obsession with Earth modes of transport, having sometimes stolen a vast number of bicycles and stacked them into a large pile in nearby parks for unknown reasons. This could easily be written off as the behavior of a group of teen vandals, so the Foundation doesn't find it to be particularly concerning. By contrast, its tendency to pick up and stack cars on top of each other is much more concerning to Foundation containment specialists and Foundation accountants that need to crunch the numbers on paying for all the damage. Dogs are another Terran fascination of the lunatic. He's been known to pick them up and even steal a large number of them, believing them to be a form of currency. But he only ever attempts to use them to buy other dogs, a logic that doesn't seem to track for any comprehensible system of commerce. Because of the highly strange and visible nature of the lunatic's antics, it's not uncommon for the citizens of the town it visits to call the authorities, but any attempts to stop it will be utterly fruitless. Local police have opened fire on the lunatic, who never actually makes any attempts to stop its attackers. It never even really reacts to the bullets ricocheting off its suit. Given its immense strength and dangerous attacks, illustrated by how it behaves towards fire hydrants, everyone involved is just lucky that it's not confrontational towards humans. After a period of trying to collect volunteers for its moon monster mission, which has ranged from 30 minutes to 7 hours in extremis, the lunatic will activate its jetpack and exit the Earth's atmosphere at greater speeds than have ever been recorded for any conventional vehicle. After leaving Earth's orbit, it will travel towards the moon at 40,500 kilometers per hour, at which point it will shift its angle slightly when entering the lunar orbit. It will pass out of view when approaching the far side of the moon, at which point it will either hide or demanifest entirely. The strange thing is, the Foundation does in fact have a functional lunar base, and none of the claims of embattled moon dynasties and rampaging lunar monsters seems to have any corroborating evidence. Despite the tireless efforts of the workers on Lunar Area 32 and the Sentinel satellite array, there hasn't been anything like the lunatic described in his various visits to Earth. There also have been no sightings of the lunatic himself on the moon. It's another one of those anomalies that seems to somehow defy understanding. The more you learn, the less you appear to know, and that goes for everyone who ends up actually accepting the lunatic's offer, too. For years, the Foundation had simply gotten lucky that nobody they had ever reported encountering the lunatic had actually taken up its offer to help fight the good fight against the moon monsters. That all changed on October 5, 2017, in the sleepy town of Hereford, England. The lunatic landed on the outskirts of the town before wandering in, where it met a 27-year-old male civilian named Harry Godsall. It immediately began asking Harry whether he wanted to become a hero by joining him on the moon, where they would fight together against the terrible moon monsters. Everyone else had either politely declined or simply ignored the lunatic's requests. But perhaps believing that the lunatic was engaging in the classical British behavior of banter, Harry decided to sarcastically reply, "Oh, absolutely, you nutter. I'm ready to go right now. Got my toothbrush and everything. Let's fly, spaceman." And in the process, he sealed his fate. Before anyone could intervene, the lunatic dramatically proclaimed,
"Ha ha! At last! A brave warrior hiding in plain sight amidst these pastoral and bucolic humans. Let us away, fair meatfellow, and earn the glory of heroes. This day you brush your tooths amongst the stars. We fly!"
And indeed, they did. The lunatic immediately wrapped his arms around Harry's body and flew directly upwards, breaking the sound barrier with such force that the sonic boom broke all the glass in a 300-meter radius. It accelerated to a projected velocity of 25,000 kilometers per hour within approximately 4 seconds, as it shot up through the stratosphere with a screaming Harry Godsall in its arms. Harry was never seen after that. It's unclear if he was somehow shielded and transported by SCP-1233's anomalous abilities, or if the sheer speed with which they moved through the stratosphere may have completely incinerated Harry. Either way, after amnestics were applied and the Foundation figured out what had happened, Harry was first reported missing, and then later, dead. Since this incident, it's become official policy for the Foundation to never directly interact with the lunatic in order to reduce the possibility of this unfortunate outcome occurring to a member of the organization's staff. Given the fact that the lunatic is effectively impossible to contain with primary containment methods, it's more than earned the Keter containment class. Due to the complexity of the containment situation around this one, its files also have notes on the anomaly's risk and disruption classes. For the former, it's the second highest of all the risk classes, danger, denoting significant to extreme anomalous effects that pose considerable danger to any individual nearby. Its disruption class is Ekhi, also the second most severe on record, with a known area of disruption roughly the size of a large metropolitan area to an entire country. But far more concerningly, the potential to disrupt the entire world. All these worrying facts raise the question of how exactly the SCP Foundation can even begin to deal with such a bizarre and disruptive outer space enigma. We're talking about the Secure, Contain, Protect Foundation after all, not the, oh god, people are being dragged into the stratosphere by an immortal spaceman and there's nothing we can do Foundation. This is where the Foundation's Atmospheric Reconnaissance Global Observation System Satellite Network, or ARGOS for short, comes in. 3 years and 6 months after the last recorded departure event of SCP-1233, the ARGOS network enters Priority 2 high alert status, watching like a giant technological hawk from above for the next appearance of the entity. When it's detected, a nearby covert amnesticization and disinformation mobile task force will be dispatched to instigate crowd control measures and ensure that any civilians exposed to the event are given proper amnestic treatment. In the event that someone is taken by the lunatic, the general instructions are to cover up the incident itself and fabricate a disappearance report, which will later lead to the unfortunate new Moon Champion being declared dead a few months later. Suitable cover stories will be created for any property damage, and a media blackout will be instituted over the situation until the Foundation has everything under control. But really, how can we ever truly have everything under control with the lunatic out there? It's his solar system, really. We just live in it. Check out the DrBob Patreon and become a junior researcher today. Now go and watch another entry from the files of DrBob, like SCP-1550, Dr. Wondertainment's Custom Pets, Top 12 SCP Animals compilation.